Wait, live stream 3 now, or?
Live stream 2.
Sorry. Alright.
Live stream 2, I've got the thing, and we will be going live. Let me just check the YouTube's going out. It's always great when it starts off like this, isn't it? Let me just check it's working properly. Yeah, one watching. That'll be me. We might as well wait for a little bit before anybody else comes in.
That's in your channel?
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah, nobody in here. Let me just
To watch it.
Yeah, let me just sort out what we're going to go over. Nice of Alan to come in to have some positive comments there. Oh, my God. 3 people watching. Wow, it's filling up. Right.
I just dared some ballers to come and show us their logic.
Yeah. Right, well. See on my phone. I think I got the definitions and all of that from last time. Well worth going over again.
Before we get started, we've talked about the 7 liberal arts. I've never seen it laid out like this before. This is definitely kind of eye-opening. Check that out.
Okay. Go on, explain that then. Where's the...
I just thought it was interesting. The trivium is your logic, grammar, and rhetoric that you'd get trained in first, and then the quadrivium is arithmetic, geometry, music, and something else I can't forget.
Astrology or something, don't they?
Maybe.
Some sort of astrological stuff. And what the senses of the what
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Like when you have the logic and all those things and it ties, like, you know, it
ties it all together.
Yeah,
nice.
that's, I know. It blew, that's the first time I've
3,
seen
4,
that.
5 triangle as well.
Yep.
Within the Pythagorean triple.
Yep. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's the first time you've ever seen the senses? Link them all. Where did you find that?
I just was looking up, the liberal arts, and I've looked it up before, but that's the first time I've seen it tied together like that. I never made the connection once you learn all of the logic and the different things and it ties your 5 senses to it. I was like, man, that's...
So I might have to... I might have to
that's...
try and copy that myself.
Yep, that's awesome.
Do save that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's
4, 5.
Sorry, the quadrivium is number, geometry, music, and cosmology.
Cosmology, yeah. Number being maths.
Maths, yeah.
Right, so geometry's within the trivium.
Oh, quadrivium. You'd have to learn the like logic, and then like once you got into geometry, I guess it all.
Yeah, the trivium is with logic, rhetoric,
grammar,
and grammar.
Right,
and the quadrivium would be the geometry.
The quad's the number. What was the quad again, Buster?
Quad, Trivium is grammar, rhetoric, and logic. Quadrivium is number, geometry, music, and cosmology.
Right. And then there is no more, right?
Mm-mm.
Well, yeah. Where's the imaginometry then? Is that in the sixth?
Mm-hmm.
The sixth sense?
Yeah, this.
Yeah, meta. It's meta.
Meta, yeah, definitely. Once you get triangles with more than 180 degrees like that, once you go beyond Pythagoras, that's where it is. Somewhere off one of the corners of a larger triangle. That's good though. But there's like the senses are the ones that have built that shape within it.
Mm-hmm. It's a right angle, so you know you're right.
That is good, that though.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Get the photos up from last time. Did I? Right, well, I was going to go over the definitions again, but I mean, do they really need going over? Do you need to see them? Or just remember them? Because it's stuff that has to be defined, right? I mean, I was trying to go over this and think of, like, what's the purpose of us doing the logic? All of the ballers and all of that, everybody's like, can't see the use in it. But the idea of is to give a basis that you can build your own proofs at the end of it. This is all about taking control of the proofs that you're going to hold for yourself. Like, because nobody's ever going to give you this. So this is all built upon the foundations of you finding your own proofs. And the logic is the way for you to build your own formulations and whatnot. Now, geometry is just sort of I call it the exercise book for logic, right? It just does teach you logic. But the definitions within the logic, within the geometry, are set and sound. But you have to, if you're going to do your own logic and formulate your own logic, then the definitions that you use are what you're going to take forward into your logic. Now, if you don't have a firm understanding of the definitions, then I'm guessing the logic can fail if it's not already predefined. And that's where a lot of the people we talk to have a problem, because they literally have a different definition. So if you have a different definition of something, how are you going to take that forward? And how are you going to converse with somebody on something like a logical statement if you both have a different definition of the words that you're going to use? Or even, what's the purpose of conversing with anyone that has a different definition of something? Yeah,
Yeah, that's why we have the Socratic method, so that we can at least make sure that we are talking about the same thing. Because otherwise, like you say, you aren't gonna get anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's what's become pretty clear to us over the last couple of weeks, maybe even longer. Maybe we've been doing this for years. But over the last couple of weeks, it's become very apparent that the conversations that we have are a different sort of conversation. And if you can't converse with people and try and understand and work on the same definitions of something, then I don't know whether the conversation can actually go forward anywhere. It just ends up looping round and round and round and going nowhere. Which I'm guessing that's why most of us are here, and like with the logic. I mean, this is basic stuff, but I don't know. We're sort of forging a new way, and we found that there's a complexity in the simplicity. I.e., that you can make something simple and keep it. I don't know. Keep it fun, staying at the very basic level, because a lot of people. Oh, fucking hell, who's that? I just got to block somebody in the chat. Right, so I don't know whether it's going out on the other live stream, is it? I'll give him a warning, or somebody else can. Whatever. He's already had one message blocked. Where was I?
Who was that?
In live stream 2 text, riding, is it? Is it riding on eggshells on his sock account?
I'll see.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So the definitions are the way we have to go forward. They're like the building blocks that we're going to use for the logic. And I don't know, it should be a pretty simple thing for you to come under and start the definitions of whatever. And especially if you use geometry, then the definitions are already set. There's no arguing with any of those. Especially if you use the definitions from Euclid, which is a exercise book for teaching you how to logic, I consider. But the logic came before the Euclid, and that's I guess what we're doing. We've found the Euclid, and we've found the proofs. I have. And then we found the logic. Now the logic is where you find the proofs. As in like a modus tollens type argument, or a modus ponens is like the oldest form of an argument, but it's sort of mathematical in a way it's laid out, the logic. And I don't really know how to explain it any other way than most people have got it, haven't we? We've got in the room. But this is for other people listening as well. I mean, we want as many people to come in and get involved with this sort of thing. So I don't want to be making out that this is too awkward, but the maths and geometry, and I'm guessing logic as well, has been made to be confusing. There's a lot of people that have been taught, especially when you go through the school system, that to make something complicated is to show somebody how clever you are. Whereas, I don't know, I maybe come from a different school of thought. You need to make it simpler. And I always liked the idea of watching somebody who could do something effortlessly. And if you ask them a question about it, they can explain to you implicitly everything, every little detail about what you're doing. And that, to me, is an expert in something. Not somebody who tries to confuse you with whatever it is they're talking about. They should be able to explain stuff simply to you. And that's where we want to be at the beginning of this. So what we did last time, well, I think the first time we sorted out the P's and Q's to get everybody interested in it, and we found out at that point there's a certain group of people that just don't like logic. I mean, that's fine, but we've got most of the people here that are the ones that we knew would be a small group very quickly, because this is going to be this is awkward for a certain group of people with a model. Right, so the first week we did a P, if P then Q, and laid out the basic formulation of an argument, but just the if P then Q. I mean, trying to come up with an antecedent consequent thing is it's a bit trickier than it initially thought, but we did really well, built on it. But then we went back to the definitions and of Euclid, and to show how the axiomatic progression of one step onto the next, it's sort of everything builds upon each other, which is what the logic does. Now, like I say, the idea of this is to give people a sense of what a proof is and how you can obtain that proof for yourself with the formulation of your own logic. And I don't know whether it was by luck or chance, but over the last couple of weeks or last week, we found upon a fallacy of stolen concept, and it's sort of stuck around for a bit, and it's ended up being, I don't know, probably one of the most eye-opening things for me personally anyway. When you find something that's always been there that you don't know, like you never actually realised it was always there, and you know at a certain point the model becomes ridiculous, and at that point you have to realise, and you're always trying to work out how somebody else can't see what you can see. I think it's the logic that does that, but you need to have your eyes opened up to it. Somebody has to show you something, and it can be just as simple as a conversation with someone. So the basic premise of the fallacy of stolen concept is one worth understanding and knowing, is the idea where you take the argument is based around disproving something that they initially start off with as a part of the premise. And there's a lot of this.
I think maybe.
Go on.
I was just going to say maybe an example.
Yeah. Well,
it is a really valuable.
Yeah. And well, the biggest example, because I always have to bring everything back to the level and horizontal argument, that if you have, you start off with a straight line, which is what is needed for the Pythagorean calculator, the curvature formula of 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that's a triangle. You're making a triangle, but in order to make that triangle, what you're doing is you're saying that level ends up being curved. So you're taking a straight line and using the concept of a straight line in order to tell that that straight line isn't straight, which is fallacy of stolen concept, right? You can't take something and then use that something to say it's not what it was to start off with. And that, you'll find there's a lot of that within the model. And that's, I think, personally, that's why there are people that cannot look at logic. They cannot see logic for what it is and the simplicity of it, because the moment they do, it turns it into a they just sort of, they've got to realize that. I mean, even you can go into an argument within that, with a fallacy within your argument and not see the fallacy until somebody points it out to you. That's the way logic is at the minute. So yeah, that's been good fun learning that one, because when you look at any of the arguments that we're probably hopefully gonna go and look at, the fallacies of the model, which are normally reductio ad absurdums within these logical arguments that we're going to end up coming up with. So, anyone got anything else that they've found? Because I wanted to go over one of our logics, but let me just find it and then...
Well, while you're finding that, I did want to state that since last Tuesday, the axiom that I found the most pertinent was axiom 10, that two straight lines cannot enclose a space. And that means that a straight line is indeed, in fact, a straight line. And I had many discussions over on Nathan's channel, and Akumu Virus even went on to Nathan's channel to discuss straight lines, curved lines, what is your definition of a straight line, all these different things. And there were many people that were chiming in through text chat, because they're afraid to speak up during the show and whatnot, or they just don't want to, whatever their case may be. But they were basically stating that, well, this is your definition of a straight line, but a straight line can also mean this, right? When we're talking about spherical geometry, a shortest distance between two spaces on a sphere and whatnot. But what seems to be happening is that logic seems to keep crossing over into Euclidean geometry. And they are stating that, in fact, a straight line by Euclidean definition is the shortest distance between two points can also be a curved line. Well, that is not the case. And no matter how much you point this out, they will still say that no, even by Euclidean standards, that a straight line is in fact curved based off of a sphere and a 3D object of a sphere, a solid object, which that does not go by the definition. And so they're just picking out certain little pieces that fit what they want it to fit, like the shortest distance between 2 points, but not actually taking the rest of the context of what has been said into consideration, period.
Yeah, right. You know what I just said? The fallacy of stolen concept.
Exactly.
Can you see where that fits into this particular argument?
That's exactly why I brought it up. And it's like context matters. Like I almost want to get picket signs and make T-shirts like context matters. Well, like we need context.
The beauty of that, the fallacy of stolen concept, is that within the Euclidean framework, you have to lay out the Euclidean geometry. Now, that's plane geometry, and it goes all the way up to book 11, where you go to solid geometry. Within solid geometry, then you form a sphere in the three-dimensional solid geometry, right? Now, what non-Euclidean geometry wants to be able to do, the perfect fallacy of stolen concept, is take that sphere that you've worked through all the way through Euclidean geometry and plop that right at the beginning of Euclidean geometry and say, this is the framework you're going to work on. And then put all of the Euclidean rules, shortest distance between 2 points. They just want to put that on a sphere. But you can't do that. You can't take Euclidean geometry and then revert it back to say on a sphere, because it doesn't work. It's literally, it's the fallacy of the stolen concept. You can't take a straight line and all of the proofs for those straight lines to then say they're not straight lines. Do you see where that is? Like, it is literally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's a wizard trick what they've done.
It really is. I mean, the definitions, how they try to intermingle things, they take things out of context. Yeah, it's really quite fascinating how they've done it, and how they can't even see how it's been done, and they can't even truly argue against it because they aren't even able to admit that it's been done and where they are at fault in these logical arguments. So it really makes it difficult to have that kind of a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the difference between the logic and the not logic. Because being able to say that a straight line isn't straight when you start off is it leads them down to so many problems. It really does. I mean, I don't think half of the people are aware of it. But I mean, we've been there quite a few times with the problem. I mean, all you have to do is you have to take them on that surface of a sphere where they have a straight line curving and ask them what would a tangent be, because a tangent's a straight line. So how can you have a straight line touching a straight line? They're not the same, are they? The straight lines, one of them's curved and one of them's straight. So therefore, within non-Euclidean spherical geometry, there's no such thing as a straight line. So you can't have a tangent. You can't have a chord. They don't exist within spherical geometry. So there isn't really an argument for anybody that... If anybody jumps on the spherical geometry argument, then they've lost because they can't get off it. There's no vertical.
Okay, so I think this is where Akuma Virus, when it was on Nathan's show, he was talking about the chord, and he was talking about tangents, and he was trying to bring up spherical geometry and Euclidean geometry and making them one and the same. I'm not very familiar with spherical geometry, but I could see how he was making a mistake, but I still am not quite clear. If you could explain it further, I don't know if other people want to hear this, but I would like to hear further why the chord and the tangent in spherical geometry, why it is so pertinent.
Well, basically, spherical...
I actually want to hear that too.
Spherical geometry is just the geometry on the sphere, right? Like I said earlier, what you do is you go through Euclidean geometry and you get to book 11. You make a sphere in that three-dimensional. Then you bring that sphere back into the beginning of the plane geometry. And you say that that's the surface I'm going to work on, is that surface there. But it's not, it's a two-dimensional surface, just like plane geometry. It's a conceptual thing. Whereas plane geometry, you can actually use it and, you can depict it. Spherical geometry, you can't. You can never use it because what's the two-dimensional surface of a sphere?
Well, yeah, because so I get what you're saying, because it's conceptual, right? We take the conceptual 2D onto actual 3D and the 3D world that we're living in, and the only way that they can, this is the thing, is I think that they're using it to say that what we're living on is actually this sphere, which is not a sphere. Well, right? And so it doesn't even work there because we don't live on a sphere either.
Yeah, but if it is a sphere that we're living on, then it's a three-dimensional Euclidean shape. It's a solid thing. It's not a spherical geometry. It's solid geometry.
Exactly. Right? And that's my point, that no matter what, it's either the solid geometry, and on top of that, they claim that it's not a sphere. So it doesn't work in either instance, right? Because they say that it's this oblate, weird, geodesic, all these different terms for it that is not a complete sphere. So it wouldn't work either way, no matter which angle they try and come at it from. No pun intended.
Well, it's how do you represent your reality. If it's in 3D, then you will definitely describe it Euclidean. You'll look at something and go, that's a ball. You know, that ball is a 3-dimensional thing. At no point would you ever say the surface of something is 2-dimensional.
Exactly. It's only
think.
conceptual.
Yeah.
Like the 2-dimensional is conceptual. And we have people that it's crazy too, because I have the same people saying, oh no, there were Globers that in the chat were like literally saying, no, they don't actually think that a straight line curves. They know that it doesn't curve. They're just saying this. And I'm like, no, keep reading. Like they really think this. And then they ended up getting into voice.
Actually.
No, they got into voice chat and were literally saying, yes, a straight line curves. There are many people that think this. And there are many people that think that two-dimensional is a real thing. That my computer screen is 2-dimensional. They don't realize that it's actually 3-dimensional. And I've even pointed this out to people when they say, oh no, like your computer screen is 2-dimensional. I'm like, then what is light? What is light? Because Globers think that light is 3-dimensional as well. So on all bases, it's...
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
The screen itself is 2D.
No, it's conceptually 2D. It's not actually 2-dimensional. And this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's no such thing as 2D in reality.
There isn't. Exactly.
The screen itself?
It's not 2D. The screen itself, you can conceptually think of it as 2D, but no, there is dimension to it. There's poruses to it. It's not actually a 2-dimensional shape. Even on their stance, I don't know what light actually is, so I'm not going to take a stance on that. But even the light coming out of it, they say is 3-dimensional. And so when I point that out, that's when they're like, well, you know what I mean? It's funny.
Yeah, this is how you describe your own world. I mean, there will be people that will argue forever about what 2D, 3D is. I mean, the conversations go round and round and round. I mean, I don't think anybody should get upset if other people don't particularly want to think like you, but
I agree. I don't
say
think
that
people should get
2D is
upset.
conceptual and everything in reality is 3D. That's what I'd say.
Yeah,
But-
and I agree. I don't think people should get upset about it either. I think that it should just be a discussion.
Yeah.
But people do get really upset about these kinds of things and are like, it's 2-dimensional. Everything is 2D. Like, I don't know. It gets wild.
Bev, I have a question for you about something you said earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say that you can't have a vertical on a sphere?
What?
No, he said in spherical geometry there is no vertical.
Okay.
Yeah, the spherical geometry is the geometry of the 2-dimensional surface of the sphere. There is no height or depth component to it. It's just 2D. Well, 2D to me is a plane surface. You know, that's what 2D is. You can't say that I can't say that the surface of a sphere is 2D. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But they've constructed a framework where I'm guessing, tricky little play, the space is curved. The lines actually stay straight, and they just curve the space, which is very clever wording, because we live in Euclidean 3 space, and they just change the space, and conceptually then you can turn it into a 2D. But yeah, they're in spherical geometry. There's no vertical component. There's no tangent. There's no chord. Because that would
So are you
stray
saying?
from
and
the
no
So are
surface.
you
radius.
saying that? Are you saying
No
that
radius.
there's really no such thing as spherical trigonometry? Is that what I'm getting?
That's
There's
different.
no such thing as globe geometry.
Spherical geometry, but spherical trigonometry is actually, that's been around for ages. Don't get the words confused. Spherical trigonometry is just, all you do is imagine a cube within the sphere and a cube without the sphere, and then you put a line from the radius of the sphere to the outside, but you cut the squares, both of them, and you use all of that, and you just take an average for the sphere around the inner sphere and the outer sphere, and you can change that to different shapes. It's all in like book 12 and 13, Euclidean geometry, how to, you know, how you would formulate that and within the data. But I mean, I don't understand why people would want to do that. It's just it's a folly for mathematicians throughout the ages to convince each other that, you know, I think wizardry. You can do things with maths and geometry that fascinate people, but a sphere is a sphere. A square is a square. I mean...
Well, and once again, they do not claim that we live on a sphere. So using spherical geometry should not work, period, because it's not a sphere, right?
It is working in the way that I think it's meant to. It's wizardry.
Well, that's what, yeah, I think in the wizardry, it's definitely working. It's definitely taking stronghold. Yeah. But if people even just really just focus on the fact, like, hey, it's not a sphere, it starts to break apart the pieces simply by that. Like, it's not a sphere. So you can't use spherical geometry on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the very fact that I don't think you can describe a sphere or a circle without having the straight line to do it, which seems really weird, but that's what you're stuck at. That's the way maths is. That's the way reality is.
Would you be able to expound on that a little bit further, like without having the straight line to be able to describe a sphere? I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I don't know. There is no other way to describe it. I mean, you think about it. How would you describe a curve?
With something that is curving, something that is bending. And this is what I've discussed, is that when they talk about a straight line curving, they're merely talking about being in the driver's seat and moving forward. And my mom, I don't know why, maybe this stuck with me, that I can differentiate between a straight line and a curve, is my mom was a total hippie. And she would make jokes like, you know, when people give her directions and they're like, okay, go straight through here. And she's like, no, never straight, always forward. Right? Because it is a direction. Like, and of course she was talking about she didn't want to be a straight, right? Like a square or whatever. So she would always say, always forward, never straight. Or never straight, always forward. Like, that's a direction. But if you're moving in a direction and your car is going over hills and bumps and roads, that's not a straight line. Just because you're headed in one direction doesn't mean you're moving in a straight line.
Yeah, the idea is that you can't describe the curve, right? I think it's an impossible thing without.
How do you mean?
You can't describe a curve because the base is the elemental. It's the straight line. You need a straight line to describe it.
Wouldn't you just say that it's going, like, I would think that, so this is just my simple brain, but when you say something is curving, and so the way to describe it is by visually showing someone, which is how we've learned what a curve actually is. You can show them a ball, you can show them a curve line. If it was somebody that was blind, you would be able to have them feel that curve, like this is curved. And so therefore they would know that it's not straight. It is a curve, and that's how you would describe it, right? But I maybe I'm guessing, like putting it down in words, like how something actually curves. Then you could say it has a radius, it has these different things. But I guess I'm missing the point on how we cannot describe a curved line from your perspective.
I'm confused too. Hold on for a second. Isn't deviating from straight? Isn't that describing a curve?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not like how good a definition or a description is that of the curve that you're talking about? I mean, just a random curve, fair enough. I mean, like within geometry and I guess reality and thought, you have a straight line. Well, that's easy because it doesn't need defining. Everybody knows what it is. It's straight.
But
right?
but you said he said deviating from a straight line, which means you have to have the straight line to reference the curve
Yeah.
too.
Exactly.
So you can't say straight is curved. That's
Yeah.
a stolen concept because then you're arguing against the very thing you have to have.
It's beautifully put. Exactly.
Stolen concept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. It is
But-
a stolen concept.
But also, if you was to describe a circle, I mean, how do you do that? I mean, because it's unscalable, saying a circle could mean a multitude of different curves, right? That doesn't describe the curve just by saying a circle, because it's unscalable, therefore the curve's like the same, but if
Okay.
it gets bigger, it's different, but it's still a circle.
So I just bought my 4-year-old for his birthday. He just had his birthday. Yay. Turned. And sorry about that. And I got him one of those spiralographs. I don't know if you guys ever had one of these,
Yeah.
but it's where you stick your pen in it and you move it around the little object in the circle, and it continues around the circle to create different shapes within it. And so, yeah, you can be moving, right? And you can create all these different shapes and all these different things within a circle. You can go beyond that circle. I get what you're saying now about actually describing what that circle actually is. It is quite a conundrum.
Well, you have to have
It's not
the
as simple as a
radius.
straight line. It's a straight line between 2 points. Yeah, and you have to have the radius.
Yeah.
You have to have the radius.
That's one of the most important things, right? And you can measure the
Thank you.
radius by doing the diameter, right? And then halving it, right? So is that really a measurement or a calculation of the radius at that point? So, like, I'd say you can't really measure the radius of a sphere because you can't put your thing into the center, your ruler,
Yeah, you couldn't.
to measure it.
Unless you drill through it.
But you could measure the diameter. You could measure, well, not even the diameter, because what you do
Yeah,
is
you couldn't.
you put something on top of it, make sure it's level, make sure the bottom's level, and then measure, because you'd have to have two parallels.
You'd need the straight lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'd have to have those parallels, those two lines that you put on top and bottom, in order to measure the distance between them to find out the diameter of it. They would have to be parallel for you to get an accurate distance measurement for that sphere. Well, that's Euclidean. That only happens in Euclidean geometry. And you can't have any of those straight lines being curved.
Well, how are they doing it in spherical geometry if they're saying that they're able to gather all this by saying that straight lines are actually curved? Are they just bending and warping lines like willy-nilly so you can have a straight, you can have a curved?
To warping your
we can-
mind into thinking that it's something real.
Yeah.
It's just not. Like,
It's
And
a
this is my
conce-
thing, is that I'm not that well versed on
Yeah.
spherical geometry, so I hear what they're saying, and it does not make sense to me whatsoever how they can just flip flop.
you
It's
know
not
what I
meant
mean?
to. It's by definition the 2D surface of a sphere. So it's 2D. It's conceptual. That's it. It only exists in the mind. It's like getting the square footage of a room. I've made this analogy before. You measure the room, and you get the square footage, in 2 dimensions. You do the calculation. It's just a calculation, the square footage. But in reality, you measure it.
Well, even when they were talking about, so over on Nathan's, it was a Kuma virus, and gotta love the guy. I think he's super funny. I have no qualms about him, except for what he thinks about these kinds of topics. But he was saying that even when it came to the sextant, that he was like, well, this is the difference between circles of equal latitude or whatever it's called, because I'm not really familiar with all this, and a spherical cap. So then I researched what a spherical cap is, and because in my mind I was like, well, that just means a flat bottom circle with a dome on top of it, right? And so I looked it up, and that's exactly what it is. So I was like, how does it make any difference? You're still having to have the same circles. Like, it just does not make sense to me what their arguments are, and maybe I need to learn more about spherical geometry to really nail them to the wall. But yeah, I'm
What
not
you
getting
should-
anything that seems
should be
logical.
aware of anything when you ask somebody for some help about something. If they give you a long stream of information that doesn't make any sense, and at the point that you try and interrupt them to ask them because it's just not making sense, that they tell you to stop interrupting them and let them finish, they're just giving you a load of rubbish. Like, they know it
Well,
as
usually
well.
it just comes down to you don't understand. And I'm like, I'm literally saying, I don't get this. Like, I do not understand
Can't get it.
how you can say this because of these things. And I'm not trying to be, I feel like Tom Hanks, once again, in Big, where he's like, I don't get it. With the
No.
stupid robot toy that makes no sense. I don't get it. Like, it does not make sense to me. I don't understand how they can meld all these different things to mean different things, and even flip-flop from Euclidean to spherical. And even if they remain only in spherical geometry, number one, the Earth is in a sphere. Number two, how are they making straight lines into curved lines back into straight lines? Spherical caps still have a flat bottom to it. Like, none of it makes sense
It's 'cause
at all.
It's not. It's not meant to.
Good. I'm glad that that's what we have come. Yeah, it's really boggled my brain, and I've tried to figure it out, and I'm like, yeah, it's not. I almost feel like it's not. Honestly, it's not that I don't get it. It's that it doesn't make any freaking sense at all. Like, and I feel like I'm the lone person out having these conversations with them. That they're just like, oh
Hey,
yeah,
Beth.
no, we can do this, we can do that.
Can you do a diagram? Maybe it'll help her out.
No, I think it's as easy as this. A two-dimensional shape, you know what that is: a square, a triangle, a circle. You know what 2D is. Well, if you can conceptualize the two-dimensional surface of a sphere, then you're better than I am.
Yeah, I get it.
At that point, it fails, right? It like that. I can't go any further, and I don't know whether you're with me or not, but you can't be taught to conceptualize something that it just seems so far out there, right? It doesn't make you clever, you being able to do that. To me, that's you being able to imagine life in Narnia, because it just doesn't exist.
I was basically just
Well-
putting myself out there for other
Yeah.
people to hear
Yeah,
that I've had these conversations. I've been there. This is what I'm witnessing. This is like how nonsensical they are. And hopefully others will speak up and be like, yeah, like I
That
witnessed
is
this as well. I'm just putting myself out there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've
Yeah.
all been there, right? You have to come to
Well-
this a long-going conversation that, yeah, this stuff just doesn't make sense. And it's not that you're not clever enough. It's that it doesn't make sense to anyone other than
Exactly.
the people that want to try and fool you.
Well, and that's where I said with the TV screen itself. You know, without the images on the TV screen, if you got a flat screen TV, you know that the screen is flat, regardless of what you see in the image.
I've got curves.
Ah,
The
but we
images-
got curved
I've got
screens
curved.
now.
Yeah,
Ah, ah.
yeah. Future.
Wait.
It's 2021, Redmond. Get with it, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just because you see the screen as, you know, as far as the images that come up there, our shows, stuff that we watch, you know, football, baseball, you see it in 3D, but you know the TV itself is the screen itself is 2D. That's why I only brought that up.
Absolutely, bro. There's no such thing as 2D. Only in a computer screen and fantasy in our minds.
Thank you.
I thought he was saying that the screen is 2D.
The flatness of the screen.
No,
The images that you see it in 3D, but it's still 2D. Go ahead. And get back working on this car.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But think about it, bro. Even the image, even if we draw a line, right, to represent a 2D on a piece of paper, that's 3D. The only place where we can have 2D is in our mind. Think about it.
That's right. I like.
Have you
the
ever?
blend
I'm
of
not picking on you, bro. This is like I'm just talking now. You're the one that brought it up. But think about it. Have you ever seen a 2D object?
No such thing.
Nope.
But
He was actually,
Go on.
I could be wrong, but I think he was actually saying the screen is 2D. I think that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
The screen is a physical thing with lights and stuff like that. Like, it's not a.
Yeah.
It's not a 2D plane.
Nothing we experience is 2D. It's that simple. Nothing. We have never, you, me, anybody, everybody has never experienced 2D ever, or never will.
Hold up.
Whoa.
Now a circle, that is 2D. A square is 2D. A cube is 3D.
Mhm.
A sphere is 3D. I will say that. I'll go
Yeah,
back
but you
on
also
Yeah.
have to understand that even if you're drawing a square on a piece of paper, that's
Yeah.
3D. It's only
No,
in
it's
your mind. Yes, it is. It's only in your. The
Okay,
ink
okay.
is 3D, the pen is 3D, the paper is 3D. Everything is 3D in our reality. It is conceptually how we think and how we can describe things is 2D.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'll break it down. I'll break it down for you like this. So, if you draw me a cube, how would you draw it? So I can see a cube.
Yeah, you can do that easily by drawing it in a three-dimensional way with shadows and highlights. I
Right.
mean, you can't see all sides to it because you would not be able to see all sides to it, but you can still conceptualize in a person's mind that it is 3D when drawn in a 2D matter, but it is still conceptually 2D because the paper, the pen, the ink, like all of it is still 3D in our actual reality. It's in our minds that it would be 3D, and it is in our minds that it would be 2D.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I tell you to draw me a square, are you gonna draw a cube?
No, if I were to draw a square, I would just draw 4 lines and make a square. If I were to draw
Oh,
a
so-
cube, I would then
so-
make it into something that has shadows and highlights.
Okay, so if I draw a square, and is that 3D or is that 2D?
When you are drawing the square, the actual drawn square is in 3D. It is a 3D physical object.
Wow.
You can think of it
Okay.
in your mind as a 2D object. We're talking about like what is happening in our minds versus what is actually physically in our hands. That's the difference, right? Like how we think of things
Yeah.
versus what is actually in front of us. What we can touch, we can feel, we can taste. That's the difference. Am I
Well,
right here?
no. When I draw a square, that's a square. When I draw a cube, that's a cube. That's two different shapes to me.
Yeah, they are two different shapes, but it is still the drawing is still 3-dimensional.
I'm not knocking
Because
that.
it's on a piece of paper and the ink. Exactly. Cool.
I know how to
Talking
solve this. I think, Reds. It's when you
Yo.
draw it, it's a representation of a 2D object.
Spot on.
Yes.
Is that satisfying?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, because within Euclid, I mean, it's laid out. Those are the shapes within the two-dimensional Euclidean
Principles.
within the book, right? Of shapes, geometry.
Yes.
All the 2D shapes are in there in the conceptual two-dimensional geometry, and then when you get to the solid geometry, that's where all the 3D real shapes come in.
Real life shit.
I mean, there's some shapes that he didn't work on, but
I didn't work on all shapes.
yeah. But I mean, it's just there to give you a fundamental understanding of how you work through this. I mean, Euclidean geometry is there. The 2D, 3D argument is the same as the straight line or curved argument. It's the real. It's just a different conceptualization of the same thing. And a way for
the crux of the biscuit.
Wizardry.
Well, see, this is the difference, though. We just had a conversation with somebody that was kind of confused about this. It was easy, got it.
Ooh.
And then we have other people that are like, it's 2D. Everything is 2D. Anything that has a surface is 2D. It'll never change. And those are the people that are Globers that are like literal physical
Yeah, I don't care
reality.
about no Globers.
No, I wasn't. I was saying, like, I was giving props to you. Like, this was an easy conversation. We had a good conversation about it. And then there are certain people that just can't get past it. It's the same people that cannot get past that a straight line is not a curved line. The same people that just cannot take logic or understand things in context. It is really quite fascinating. So I was actually giving props to you about this conversation.
Well, actually,
I'm not.
when you think about a lot of them,
I'm definitely not a
also-
flat earther or anything. Sorry.
a lot of them are also people who actually believe in a 4D space. I mean, they think that 3D or 2D is real, and they also think 4D is real.
Well, let's not try and present ourselves with what other people think, because I don't know about you, I have a hard enough job of dealing with what I think. That's what we're trying to be doing here. Like I'm not necessarily concerned with what other people think.
Damn, Skippy.
Well, and I apologize. I didn't mean to call you a flat earther. I apologize for that. And all these names and terms, it's second nature for me, and I apologize for that. I'm learning. But it does show that certain people, no matter what, are able to have conversations and other people are not. Some people get really pissed off and other people don't. And it's quite obvious.
Yeah, I think that's one of the differences that we're trying to look for, right? Within this. We want to make it easy for people to talk and not end up in an argument about just saying something. And that's what it's about. It's about speaking up and saying something. Saying, I don't get that. Can you explain it? And not getting a you don't understand answer out of something. Plenty of people here to go over this sort of stuff. But yeah, the 2D, 3D argument will be ongoing many times. In fact, it'll never end because the proofs are endless. 2D, 3D. I mean, that's where the proofs are within the geometry.
Earth is not 2D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why the geometry, it tells you what the space is that you're dealing in upon the measuring of triangles. It's pretty simple. And there's proof everywhere. We live in Euclidean 3 space. There is nothing else. You don't go and travel into another place where through a Euclidean 3 space doesn't happen. Oh, Dr. John sent us something. Let me just send that. I'll have a look at that later. Dr. John. I wanted to go over like the proofs of a bit of logic, just to give you an idea of how closely the geometry and logic are linked, and exactly what it is we're doing to find a proof, and how that all fits together with the geometry, or with what we've been doing anyway, because this is where we've led ourselves to this path. I call it the Logos, that just drives everything that we do. So one of my logic statements, or one of ours, shout out DP, it started quite a long time ago, because the formulation of this came step by step, and I'll try and run you through it. But first off, we found the geometry through somebody telling us straight lines curve, and then calling me a child abuser because I didn't think the same. So then we found the Euclidean geometry, found some friends, started talking to people, discussing it. We then found the Euclidean geometry, which led to the logic, and us finding the logic. Then in the discussions that we have, one of the most influential parts was DP asking somebody, just how many straight lines does it take to make a circle? Because it was a discussion about the horizon, and they have an argument, no doubt you've heard it, 360 degrees. How can it not be a circle if it's 360 degrees? Well, we then developed that into a bit of a joke of saying, well, you could turn around. I mean, like, nobody... doesn't mean anything other than you can just turn around in a circle. And if you're always looking and the horizon's always a straight line, then DP said, how many of those straight lines does it take to make a circle? Which led to something that I think a lot of people have a problem with, because at this point is when you realise that some things that you've been looking at and seeing for your entire life just don't add up, and they don't compute, because straight lines and circles don't make any sense, but the horizon's always a straight line, yet you can turn around 360 degrees. So what gives? It can only be your visual perception of whatever it is, or the mental understanding of what your visual perception sees. It's a little bit strange. So along with that, then that brought, because that's all we're after is finding questions to ask people that gain a response. Usually the best response is silence, because that means you've hit upon a good question, and it's the computation of that question is still ticking over in somebody's brain. And a lot of people were a little bit messed up about when we started formulating this logic, because it came around. DP does t-shirts. Shout out DP merchandise. I always wear all of my t-shirts are all DP designs. We were making a t-shirt, and we thought it'd be fun to make it a fun sort of t-shirt to make it look like it was a bit mathematical, a bit logical. So we started developing this logic around the t-shirt. But I mean, the logic sounds when you think about it, right? So if I get the at the bottom of this logic, you've got A, B, then, because these are all logical symbols. The straight lines. I don't know, can you guys see? I've put the if horizontals, but I'll get the logic. I think if I see if I can find a better logic one. Maybe under like a Euclid post. So the actual logic was developed around a t-shirt. There you go. That one's better. Right, let it be shown. You've got the little backwards C shape is if then logical statement. The two straight lines means that's mathematical is parallel to. So you've got if A is parallel to B, then A is parallel to A and B is parallel to B. That's the logical and. So we made that up, bit of mathematical and a bit of logical, but it is within Euclid proposition 9. It's an actual mathematical proposition. Two straight lines, which are each of them parallel to the same straight line and are not in the same plane with it, are parallel to one another. Two straight lines, A and B, parallel to, then they are parallel to each other. All of them are parallel. So the logic of the A and B and all of that's perfectly sound. It's even backed by a Euclidean proposition. So it must be true, right? There's no way getting around that. If it's in Euclid, it's about as true as it gets. So what we did then was we link that to if horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then horizontals are parallel to each other. Again, just a logical statement. Also backed by book 11, which is solid geometry, which is sort of, it goes beyond the proofs of normal plane geometry, because as soon as you enter book 11, then you are actually in three-dimensional geometry, solid geometry of the real world. And the geometry of the real world obviously proves that the geometry within Euclid that come before it is true and not spherical. Because obviously you've got to book 11 and you're trying to work your proofs on that. So proposition, is it proposition 9? Two straight lines which are each of them parallel to the same straight line and are not in the same plane with it are parallel to one another. So that's another Euclid in book 11 that says about straight lines which are each of them parallel to the same straight line and are not in the same plane with it. Talks about planes rather than straight lines. That one in from book 11. So you take the if all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then all horizontals are parallel to one another. And if all horizontals are parallel to one another, then no horizontals can intersect with each other. It's a bit hard to get around that, seeing as the definition of horizontals will involve all horizontals being parallel with the plane of the horizon. So it's backed up with the formulation of the straight lines, and then it's also backed up with the Euclidean solid geometry proof of planes being parallel, and the definition for horizontals. I mean, look it up for yourself. See if you can find a horizontal not being parallel with the plane of the horizon anywhere, and you'll have disproved this logic. But I think that's what you've got to get through. And I think, to me, that's the sort of power of the logic. And how can you knock that? If all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then all horizontals are parallel to each other. Falsify it. What do you think of that? I think that's one of our best pieces of work, that.
I came across this one. I seen a video on the Try Thinking YouTube channel. That's how I came across this, and yeah, this one spoke to me. I did sit down at first and had a little quandary about the end of the first line, how A is parallel to A and B is parallel to B. Like, how do you
Just make
like
up
practically?
for a t-shirt.
Yeah, but I got over that one, and then the second line is just, to me, was just self-evident. So that's how I sort of came across your Discord channel too. Like this was the one that that got me.
Yeah, well, the way I saw it as I was making that for the t-shirt, and sort of the way I think about things, the A, B, and all of that, that's the setup, right? That's how you get people in, because you can't deny that. And it also looks a bit funky, doesn't it? I mean, who wouldn't be an intellectual and go, what's that, and get involved with it? And then you could get into the conversation and develop the conversation about the logic. And then you progress to the horizontals and parallel to the plane of the horizon. Because that's like, it's a bombshell. Like I was saying, when DP started with that, how many straight lines does it take to make a circle? I mean, that hits hard for most people, because it's what you've had in your concepts of everything. I mean, you can't make that horizon, that horizontal bend. I can't. But there seems to be a lot of people that can. And yeah, I do like the idea of finding logic like that. Something that's so simple that it's a bit hard to get around.
Well, and see, this is where I will chime in, and we've had this discussion before, where I am continuously trying to figure out how they bend it. And we've had this discussion so many times, because it always comes back to, you will never understand how they bend it. Because anybody who actually thinks logically, unless somebody can chime in and say otherwise, and explain it to us how they bend it logically, it does not compute. It can't be done. And I've tried. Like, I'm patient. I really listen to them, and I've not seen it how this can actually take place.
Well, they don't possess logic, Shines. That's what it is.
And that's
Logic
exactly
seems to
it.
be easy, but some people just don't. They can't do it.
That's exactly it. And that's what I've really come down to, because I really struggle with this for a long time, and I'm like, okay, I really want to understand like how they're doing it. And I can see what they're doing, but the logic doesn't compute. And I try to explain that to them, and then I get that you just don't understand, you know, this and that, whatever, but they can never actually explain it. So if somebody could actually come in here and explain how they're capable of doing such magic tricks, that would be awesome. Until then, like, I'm sorry, they're illogical.
What I would say is, don't come here and tell me something. Come in here and demonstrate how it works.
Well, that too. Exactly.
Bev's given tons of demonstrations that prove water is horizontal.
Maybe
They
there's a
haven't-
logic gene. Sorry, there, Rob. I thought you were done.
No, I'm done. We give demonstrations. Bev does, and they give rhetoric.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe there's a logic gene. Maybe it's biological. Maybe some people possess it and some people don't. I don't know. I'm starting to believe that. Because what is so obvious to me, for example, like a straight line can be curved, we can have a 5-hour argument with somebody about it.
I think that's what their purpose is, though. Just to keep you having that, I don't know, that argument about something that I'm guessing when you hear them, they know they're laughing, that they're just sort of, I told somebody that a straight line's curved.
It has to be, right? It can't be that
for hours.
Yeah, it has to be. Like I say to myself, there's no way that they can be that unintelligent, right? Let's put it mildly. It has to be an act, or like they say that it's on the payroll.
Well, no, they do tell you they're only here to troll. They're here to have fun.
Yeah, some of them, yeah, they say it openly.
Yeah, and I think that's evident. The people that follow us around, they I don't know, where they think they're gaining something by stopping us from, I don't know. I don't understand what somebody who's willing to argue about something that somebody's got a proof for. Because, I mean, like, everybody knows, or everybody should know, that the proofs are for the individual to take. I've got my own proofs. It doesn't really bother me. Because, I don't know, if you want to knock any of my proofs, you would have to give me a proof that's better. But, I mean, since I've got a proof, and a literal proof, it would be really tricky for you to be able to change that. I could help you, show you what are the proofs that I hold, and most of us, right? Anybody here, if they've got a proof, they'd be willing to share it, but only with somebody that's willing to hear it. You can't ever give a proof to somebody. I mean, that's what I think the logic is, a discussion for us to be able to formulate arguments to come together and then end up with an argument that we've all developed, right? It's not an argument where we've argued at each other. It's an argument where we've come together to formulate something that we can then give to other people as a question, right? It's sort of it's the Socratic method within a gift to give to somebody to make them find their own proofs within it and from it. Hopefully.
In the chat before with Alan, he was going on, why are we in the logic? Why am I in the logic since I don't use logic? So I asked him a question. I asked him, if you get a spirit level, let's say 20 feet long, and you leveled it out, right? It's level. Look at it, it's perfectly level. Is it level in the center and the two ends? And you know what his response was? It's not level anywhere.
Yeah, that's a troll, right? You know you're dealing with a troll at that point.
Yeah, you know that's a troll, yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, you disengage. You know, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, and they'll just follow you around, saying the same old things time after time, getting nowhere, and just like making you take 2 or 3 steps back most of the time. Or they're helping you develop your argument. They're teaching you about different types of characters that you'll meet in reality, because you will. Most of the people, like most of the people we have round here, you just dismiss and you go on with your life without it. But there seems to be different places on the internet where those sort of people can follow you around.
Yeah. Well,
Whereas
you know what they say about the rent-free thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so you, like, I don't know. I really don't know what this corner of the internet is meant for or anything like that, and what we're meant to be doing around here. But I'd like it if more people were able to speak up and, you know, without, I don't know, ridicule or sense of ridicule, because there are only a few people that do talk.
Well, yeah, they're afraid to get ridiculed. You know, it takes, I guess, a bit of guts to put yourself out there and tell everybody how you feel about stuff, right? Yeah. It's a bit scary.
I do have to say that it is scary, and especially if I'm a girl, so I think we have a different Richter scale of scariness. But I do put myself out there, and I do ask questions, and I hope that others will as well. And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. Like, that's how we learn. And for myself, like, I learn more by being wrong and learning from being wrong than I do from constantly getting like, yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. You know? So it would be really cool to hear more people speak up than the usual players.
Yeah, I find that I learn more from talking to people. And it doesn't matter who it could be. Like, we could have been talking for years or weeks or whatever, but certain tiny little conversations that we have spark all sorts of things. And they have done for years. Some of the people that we have around. Thank you. Yeah, some of the people we have around have been doing that, and they're around because they do that. And it's always good to hear from new people. So, yeah, that's what we're all about. We want to try and get this logic, and I'm going to stay at the beginning of the logic, really, and try and sort out this basic stuff for a bit. Because the formulation of these arguments are what are going to help us be able to talk to each other and develop the proofs that we can build on. I mean, we've got plenty of them, and we've got plenty more that we were able to do and develop into practical tests. I hesitate to call it science because people will freak out if we start saying that, but might be a bit of sciencey logic. It's stuff that people are afraid of. But yeah, if you want to get involved, you've got to try and get rid of the trolls. Well, not get rid of the trolls, but don't worry about trolls. People that naysayers and nothing more than that. They're all over the place. Well, I say not all over the place. Over at next level, not many. So anybody else got any of the other logic? Has anybody else been working on any of that other logic that we had?
You mean from the first night?
Yeah. You know, like, has that sort of sparked anything else yet? Because I mean, I know there's loads of people that'll be thinking different things with the logic, and it'll develop in different ways and whatnot. Anything like from that? I don't want to put people on the spot or whatever, but Rob had some good ones, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I was just talking to Brandon, my coworker, and I asked him, "Are all verticals parallel?" And only if you're a flat earther.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. He knows I'm a flat earther. Everybody here knows I'm a flat earther.
Well, did you ask
But
him
it's just
if
funny.
he's a flat earther? Is he?
Oh, he's not. He thinks he was abducted by aliens and shit, so he's not really the guy to go to. Right, Brandon? Oh, he disappeared. Thought he was right there. But yeah, it's funny. All verticals are only parallel if you're a flat earther. So, Bev, are you a flat earther?
Well, if working by that logic.
You gotta remember, that's Brandon, my co-worker's logic.
Parallel. Yeah. I guess so. I mean, yeah.
It's just funny.
Yeah. Have you worked a way of proving?
Well, like I just said to him, I said if I made a horizontal line and I made a vertical at me and my other vertical is like a mile away, those verticals have to be parallel if they're perpendicular to the horizontal. They have to be.
Yeah.
But then he was like, so you're saying the earth is flat? But he's not a good candidate to discuss these things with.
Well, yeah, I'd say that because
he's all like that, other than you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't handle the trolls in the Earth Awakening server.
Well, they are.
They're letting Brenda in there. Sorry, I'm trying to work at the same time I'm hanging with you guys.
Well, that's where we are at the minute, Rob.
Yeah, I know where we are. But in the other room, I had to deal with Brenda earlier today. I didn't realize you guys were over in this room. Sorry, my bad.
No problem. We had a live stream on, not a live stream, a premiere. Sean G.
Yeah, I was listening to that this morning. I heard that one. That was good. But I was there live for that, actually. It was in the video. It's always weird hearing your own voice in a video.
Well, I'd say that one's pretty easy to prove. I'd be able to formulate some sort of logic that'd be pretty easy to prove around that. I would think so. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm with it.
Anyone else got any other stuff? Yeah, like I say, I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
I just want to say that it would be really cool to go through.
Did she just cut out?
Oh, I think
Yeah, we lost you there.
I think it's my cord.
Yeah.
Learning the so yeah, I was just saying that I think it would be cool if like if you guys went through the actual book of Euclid, right? Like went through elements and we went more through it to have discussions, even if it was just like a bit from here, a bit from there. If we can do more of that on Tuesdays, I think it would be neat to do that together, because I've learned so much from it and learning from it. And I also started reading Euclid in the rainforest, or I can't remember, Euclid in the forest or rainforest. I can't remember. Yeah, in the rainforest. Yeah, and I'm still only I got through the prologue and I'm just getting into the book, but it's really fascinating to hear somebody else's perspective of how they read the book and how much it hit them, what they were reading and what it meant. So I think going through that actual book step by step and having people, like, especially I didn't know Axiom 10, and that one really struck me. And I think different points will strike different people in different ways. And hearing what people come up with when they hear it, I think will be really interesting if people are willing to speak up. And I hope that they will.
Well, I've been thinking about that for quite a while. And I think it may be more beneficial to split Euclid up from the logic, i.e., do a different sort of thing with the Euclid, because it needs a bit more, let's say it's a bit more of a specialist sort of thing, the Euclid. So we might have to go and do that elsewhere. But I mean, it seems to be working tonight. Yeah, quite well. So yeah, but I'd like to do another night for Euclid if we were going to do that, because I don't want to spoil the logic with bringing the Euclid in. Although it's sort of tied in together, it's a bit separate too. The idea of us bringing the Euclid in earlier on was to show you the definitions and how important the definitions are within the formulation of the logic, right? Because that's the building blocks that you're going to use. You have to understand and get forward the definitions. I'd love to go through the Euclid, yeah. As to what it means and everything. Why I think, or why everybody thinks they've done it in a certain way and whatnot.
Yeah, why we love the first principles.
Yeah. Yeah. So which is what we do a lot all the time, is just go back to first principles. We within the geometry, also within the logic. I don't consider it a benefit to anyone for you to be doing something that's not bringing everybody with you or not giving everybody a chance. So rather than us progressing on and going much further into the depths of things, I like to stick it right at the base of stuff and try and make things even more simple. Which I don't know whether people are willing to do that or whether people think they've already gone beyond it. But going back to the basics has helped me and I think most of the crew quite a lot. I just
Absolutely. I like to say one thing as I got stuff to do. I won't be able to talk. The best thing that I think myself that I rely on is the law of non-contradiction, which is basically logic, you know, at its core.
Yeah. Again, yeah. Law of non-contradiction. Something can't be something and something that it's not.
Yeah. If you start there, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah. Switch can't be on and off at the same time.
Yeah, can be hot and cold at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fundamental understanding that you have to be able to go into for you to have any sort of framework that you're going to have to build upon. That has to stand. The law of non-contradiction. Which again goes back to the straight line can't be curved, because a curve is something that isn't straight. So therefore you can't have that curve being straight. And I can't understand anybody having the concept that it is, or that it could be, or that it has to be even, as may be the case. Because to me it can't be. These are the basic fundamentals of logic. Or, I mean, when we say logic, we're at the basic concepts of how you formulate logic in the first place. Would be at the understanding of what is logic, which is a weird one. Who governs it? Would it be some school teacher or something that tells you what logic is? Or is logic that grasped from somewhere? Right? Did somebody make logic up? Or is logic a fundamental elemental that's always been there?
Well, it's like words, it's descriptions. I would say that the basis of logic has to be reality.
Yeah. Well, like him, I remember that famous thing, and first there was the word. Well, I think that word was meant to be logos.
Yeah.
So if
That's deep.
If that's the first word, then it's always been there, right? It's not something that is taught. It's something that is learned. And it's really weird when you start looking into it. It's who governs the logic. Who is the teacher of the logic? I don't think it can be taught. It has to be found by someone. And what are you without the logic?
I think you have to be subjected to like a certain situations, and then you have to like introspect about those, right? Like if you can't just like sit in a room and do nothing, and you can't just live your life and never think about it, right? There's that combination that you gotta like the just think about. You know, you just gotta be honest with yourself.
It's the thought, right? The thought breeds the logic. Or I mean, like literally, I've come to ask myself, is that the way it is, or is that just the way it is for me? They're like deep questions, right? Is my logic? I mean, it does seem to make sense when you formulate it, and other people can sort of give you the thumbs up. But I mean, there's people that say that it's not logic. So
what would you say that? What would you tell if somebody's like, well, what is logic? What do you mean? Like, and what do you mean being logical? Like, how would you? What is it at its essence?
As I say, I don't know. I think it's already there. Logic is some of my major breakthroughs have come as a moment of realization that it's always been there, right? Nothing's changed once you realize that you found something that's always been there. You never saw it.
I like to think of it as like code, right? So it's like you said, it's always there, but there could be other code on it, and it just doesn't let you, you know what I mean? Doesn't let you take hold of it, or it doesn't let it take hold. And then once you start stripping away, like, just the way I view that. Like I said, I got out of a speeding ticket just because the logic, right? And the logic was the flatter or whatever it was show me it. Right? Let's see it, demonstrate it, right? You're saying this thing is so say it. And it was basically like, we got you with the radar, right? Or no, so that was the thing. And the cop was just going over how good at radar they were. And they were showing me certificates, right? Like, oh, I did a 15-hour course with the radar gun. And I was like, I am not disputing that you are an expert at this radar gun and you could get anyone's speed. I'm not disputing that. I'm just disputing that you didn't use the radar that night. So just prove you used the radar and put all of your abilities and skills into practice. And there was no way she could do that. How would you prove that? You need a video of you doing the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, the body cam, which she didn't have on at the time, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, she had body cam, so let's just go get the footage and we'll be able to see exactly what happened. And there won't be any question. And the judge was like, you're right. We will reconvene when you get the body cam footage. And I get a letter in the mail stating that they're dropping the case. So I think logic at the end of the day is show me, right? You're saying it's walking the walk and then talking, or talking the talk and then walking the walk, right? Like I can say a plumb bob hangs to the left, right? But I can't demonstrate that, right? I can show you it always hanging down. Right? I can tell you that this down is not the same down here as it is somewhere else. Can I demonstrate that though? No, I could never demonstrate down not being down. How would you do that? Like that's an impossible demonstration.
Is you think the logic is the demonstration though, or the logic is the formulation that leads you to the demonstration?
Right. Maybe it's the logic might be the proper wording of the demonstration, right? Like you can say the rock falls. You can also say the earth pulled the mass down with gravity, right? Like now to me, that's bad logic, right? Because you're not really being accurate, right? Like the most accurate thing would be the rock moved down in a down vector through the air till it hit the ground, right?
The logic would be if I let go of the rock will fall down, right? Then the rock will go in this direction, right? That's how you formulate the logic. I think the logical processes would say if I let go, then something else would happen. Well,
I would still say that the most accurate representation of that would be the purest logic, right? So if you're like, I opened my hand, the rock, it fell to the ground, hit the floor. Like when you start adding other things is where I think you start getting into dirty logic, extra code. You're weighing it down, and it's not going to work properly when you start building on it.
Well, the logic just says what will happen, right? You could describe that fall and the path of the rock or whatever within the logical framework, right? It doesn't come to any conclusions. It just tells you what is. It's that extra bit afterwards where people go beyond the logic, right? To then start saying the reasons and all of that sort of, they add stuff onto it.
Yeah.
To make
that's
it
more what I
sound
mean.
more, that's not.
You want to stick to just what you got. You don't want to try and verbalize anymore. And the ballers, or that type of logic, they love verbalizing like these just fantastical things, right? They just verbalize it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, they keep going on and on and on. Yeah, most of the stuff we've been dealing with just recently is the trickery within the way the conversations happen around these parts. Well, say the conversations that happen. Let's say the conversations in certain places occur. Or conversations with certain people. Or certain types of people. Because there's a lot of trickery. I have had the idea that there are, let's say, wizards and magic, but not magic as the way most people would think of it. Magic just within the word trickery. Because that's where the magic happens. The magic happens in your brain because you've not seen something or you've not been aware of something. And the trickery is not making you aware of that thing that's tricking you whilst making you think something else. And that happens more often than not within these conversations that we have. And it normally ends up with leaving you with a confused state, which to me isn't conducive for a good thought process or the way you can think, for laying the framework for thinking the way it should be done. And the debate / conversation scenarios where it's always combative is something that you should be prepared for and not just dropped into. And given the basis of the logic, we should help formulate a way of being able to process those conversations and help understanding, so you don't end up with that confusion, or you at least have an understanding that confusion is put there for a reason, and the reason more often than not is to make you feel like you don't understand it. In fact, they'll tell you that a lot. Shout out Buster, new song coming out soon.
Always remember the lips of understanding are only open to the ears of wisdom. I said it backwards. The lips of wisdom. The lips of wisdom are only open to the ears of understanding.
Well, when you think about like all of the explanation stuff in, again, I hate to bring in the baller stuff, but just mainstream, right? You see mainstream. It's so complicated, right? It's so complicated that the average person, they're just, even the people who preach this stuff, right? The mainstream stuff, they'll tell you, most people, they can't understand this, right? Well, whereas it's like, it should just be so basic, right? Like logic it should be simple. Logic, if you're telling me that you understand the world and you can logically think about what it is and be like, okay, I logically understand it, but when I go to tell you about it, it's so complicated and convoluted, you couldn't possibly understand it. That's a problem. There's a disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah, if something so simple has to be made so convoluted that you can't understand it, then maybe there's something else going on. Like, what's normally meant to be seen or felt or heard or whatever around these parts is a conversation where there's no substance to it. And there's no argument coming back. Just nuh-uh. And nothing ever goes anywhere. You know what type of conversation that goes on. That just leaves you at the end of it wondering, what was that for? What did we do? Where did we go? What did we learn? And I think especially quite a lot of it is the arguments that have been learned are circular arguments that are meant to just go round and round. There's no end to them. You have the same arguments with the same person day after day, year after year, never going anywhere.
Yeah, I think you want to like spiral to the truth, right? Like that's, you think about it as like you start on this wide arc and you're fine tuning until you get down to that point. You know what I mean? And that's like the, you know, you could say the logos, whatever it is, that point. It's you don't have any of that interference. You're not searching anymore. You got it. You found it. Whereas the ballers, like again, or mainstream, it's just the circling. Right, it's everything cycles, and there's no resolution. There's nothing ever comes to an end because they don't have any truth to make any conclusion to tie anything up.
I think you've got to get away from the ballers and stop the us and them, right? Because let's face it, the people we deal with around, I don't know, model afflicted. It's not.
Yeah,
normal.
like the other way of thinking.
People.
You know what I mean?
God.
I should say I don't know what it is, how to put it. Just that the other way of processing information, right? Like there's people that they see the water level, but they're like, yeah, but around a ball, and you're like, oh, where do you get this thing that goes horizontal? How does that go around the ball? Like I just.
Model of. Yeah, we've developed these arguments specifically for the model afflicted, right? It exposes the weaknesses in what they've not been aware of, right? That's not because they're model afflicted, and it's just because that's how you study the group of people. Like I got brought in here by trolls. Trolls dragged me to this arena. I was out looking for, why some people got really triggered by certain things, and got led here by trolls. And then I just found an argument that I could state a truth that triggered the shit out of people. And we've been in this arena learning logic and developing those statements and questions specifically developed towards a group of people that we know they're trapped. They can't get away from their model. They're tied to it. And it's really easy to specifically make an argument that will trigger a model believer, because we know there's no answer. They're backed in a corner, the corner of a model. But we do have to
get
away from it.
Getting them to where you're like expose the way they have to think through their model, right? Like if you're not just using pure logic, you're running on model then logic, right? Like that's what needs to be exposed, right? Like that 'cause that's going to be your disconnect right there.
Who's disconnect?
Well, what would the world be like if there was none of the, like, everybody was on the same logical page, right? Like there was no debate about the shape, or there was no, you know, what would you think? What would be going on? What would we be doing?
I would say very different things.
I don't know, man. Maybe the part of the master plan, right? How do you get people together? You know, well, you let them separate themselves, and then they will group themselves, and then you bring them all back together, right? I think that's the big God's plan. So yeah, I think we were meant to be here at this point, doing this stuff, setting this groundwork.
Yeah, groundwork, you know, common ground. Is that what you're saying, right? So I think this is a crucial point to find that common ground. You know, however long that's gonna take, I think this is a really important part of it.
Yeah, it's just hard sometimes. Well, it's impossible most times.
Well, I mean, places like this, it's good. At least we've got this place and Next Level, of course. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, you know, they talk about, you know, the Bev cards, the Bevites, but if there is a common logic here and people are starting to find it, yeah, there's going to be some, you can call it whatever you want, but it's going to start growing, right? And it's going to be the people that are holding that idea and using that processing. So it's not like it's yours, right? It's everybody's.
Yeah,
that's the beauty.
I'm not here to teach logic. We're all here to aid each other in finding it, right? I think that's all everybody's looking for. Is looking for their answers to whatever. Well, I think logic is the truth, and that's the way to find it, is by you formulating your own logic to make sense to you, to prove whatever it is you want to prove to yourself. It's been a good journey so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree, man. It's one of the few things, you know, that will transfer over to your everyday life.
Yeah, meeting people, chatting with people. And I do admit, it's took me quite a while, because I wasn't a talker like this when I first came into this arena. And I think most of the time, whenever you come into this arena, most of the time you sit around and you're chatting and you're listening for months before you come and talk. Well, we're not like that. Just come and have a chat. Over at Next Level, if you don't want to come and talk into these places. But I mean, yeah, come in, pop in, just come in and listen for a bit.
I would say, you know, this overall debate of the shape of the Earth, it's a lot of concept versus concept. So when I sort of came across this whole logical part of what you've been doing over your channel especially, you know, that let me, you know, open my mouth, because that's not concept versus concept anymore. Now you can take it back into real life.
Yeah. your experiences all come into play, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because the other two are religions, or they're religions, right? They're trying to get you to believe in these like ideas, these concepts.
Like, I never knew before this arena, if you will, what calculus even was, propositional logic. Like, that, in my mind, that was always math, and it seems kind of intentional to kind of give it a kind of a misnomer, kind of a air of mystery to, like, disguising it as a different subject than it actually is, kind of. It kind of seems intentional to me that logic has been kept away, in a sense, from us.
Yeah.
Like, not like you being able to understand what logic is. That's not what I mean. But like setting it up in a concrete framework, and that's all been done, and people have really put time and effort into, talking about logic within calculus. It's interesting that we never really get taught about this whole, that there is already groundwork that's been done. That's what they don't want us to know.
Yeah, they replaced the logic with math and numbers.
Yeah, I think
you prove stuff with math now.
Well, one of the first things I did was to get a Euclid book, and they were, to be honest, when I first started, they were quite abundant, Euclid books, and I found one from 1871, and I was looking for a bit because it had logic. I knew there was something with logic at the beginning of it, so I got the book and I looked at the beginning. An 1871 school book said that they'd took logic out because it hadn't been deemed it was worth doing, and that's in 1871. So way back then, they'd stopped linking the early logic to the geometry, which is when you look at the Buster earlier, we're doing the is it the trivium, the quadrivium, and the trivium first, that gives you the logic, and then the geometry comes in the quadrivium. So logic is a fundamental before the geometry, but it had been taken out. Taken out of the curriculum. So they stopped teaching the logic before they stopped teaching Euclid, even though Euclid's formed on logic. But then they've phased the Euclid out of the school system also, which is a further loss of the logic. And then what they've done is they've put logic into computers.
Yeah, all one has to do is stop and ask themselves, who taught me how to think?
Yeah.
Or were you just taught how to memorize?
That's a deep question, that, Buster. Fucking hell.
No, I had it asked to me at a young age.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
Everybody should ask themselves that, right?
Oh, yeah. Make you think.
Who
Or do you know how to think?
Nobody. It's nearly as bad as who taught you the globe. Because before you come into these arena, nobody knew anything. Because nobody gets taught it. You get taught the globe model in these conversations and watching these channels and watching. That's where you learn the model. That's why everybody's so keen on you understanding their model, because they don't understand it. So they have to assume that you do too.
Well, it's dangerous to leave what you accept up to other people and their ideas and concepts. It's dangerous because like what you accept is up to you. And if you don't know how to think and you leave the ideas and the concepts up to other people, where are you going to end up at?
If you don't have a plan, you become part of someone else's plan. Someone once said.
Yeah, I couldn't say, because when I went through school, I probably went through my whole life with a blur, to be honest. So I couldn't honestly think what's going to happen to my kids or my lad and what he's learning at school and what he's going to be. I don't know. But I can say that the school system doesn't seem to be helping people. I don't think, anyway.
Well, that's what I was saying. You're not taught how to think. You're just taught how to memorize and answer a question correctly. Or what they say is correct.
Yeah. You would be much better off if you were taught to, just taught the basic fundamentals of logic and all of that, rather than the math system and whatnot. I mean, yeah, I think it's much more fascinating as well when you learn something in a way that when you can understand it and go along with it. It's much easier to learn stuff when you're inspired by the learning. Yeah. Do you guys think you can have a chat for a bit? I need to go to the toilet. Or should I queue up a song or something? We got.
It's awfully quiet.
Yeah.
Where's Right the Hand when you need him?
Well, I do have to say, like, it would be great to hear other people talk. Like, I'm sure that people have things to say, and it's okay to say them or ask questions. But, maybe that just takes time.
That's been the negative downfall of this arena for the last 2 years, is that the people that do all the debating, it's like you can't say anything, or you just get shut down, yelled at. It is kind of sad, the state it's gotten to.
Well, and that's what's great about this conversation is that, speak up. Like, we would love to hear what you have to say. That's not going to happen. There are plenty of moderators here to make sure that we can just have a conversation. So anybody that has anything to say, whether, no matter where your position is, we would love to hear it.
Where is eye level?
Chad, my favorite. It is way beyond any other that we ever see. It is beyond the telescopes. It's beyond the universe. It is so far out there that we'll never figure out where eye level actually is. Your memes are my favorite. They're just fantastic.
Thanks.
Did I miss much?
No, we just talked to
Negative.
Chad about eye level. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly that didn't work when we went out the other week to try and take some pictures to get people to get their predictions in for Ranty. Didn't work.
Yeah,
That
sadly.
didn't coax him to go out and do something.
No, I
No,
think what we ended up doing was Ruhif made a video saying he was a mathematical genius and that the pictures that we took are good enough. I don't think Ranty needs to go out now. I think...
Sadly, there's a shop somewhere with the auto levels sitting there, and they're just wondering who's going to pick it up.
Yeah. Maybe it can go to some other Glober fund somewhere maybe Rumpus can have it. Maybe Rumpus might be able to take it to the bridge and actually have a look through the auto level to see where his crosshairs are going to be. See how high he's going to have to get his stick. His noodle.
Here is Rumpus now.
Oh, he's muted. Well, I mean, I don't want to ruin the logic or anything, but I mean, we have been going for over 2 hours. So, does anyone else want to hear?
Unleash the Kraken.
What
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, now you can get a very thorough explanation of how straight lines curve.
Well, Rumpus, do you want to join in with a bit of logic? I'll unmute you for a bit. Here you go.
I haven't. I've only
day.
just got here. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, this is Logic Night over at Earth Awakening server. We do it every Tuesday. Sometimes live stream 1, sometimes live stream 2, maybe live stream 3 if
Okay.
it gets busy.
Right, got that. What's the subject of discussion?
Logic.
Which particular bit?
Well, we were talking about the logic of people buying auto levels and leaving them in the shop. Doesn't sound awfully logical, but then we said that you might be able to go and pick it up, because I don't think Ranty's going to be using it. You might be able to go and pick it up, and then you can have a look through an auto
I wouldn't
level.
mind another auto level if there's one going. Well, presumably, though, it's in Blackpool, which is some distance away from me.
No. Ranty was going to get a trip to go and see Cats. I think it was in...
Well, Cats is also in Blackpool.
Blackburn. No, he's in
Well,
Blackburn, isn't he?
Well,
Is he?
well,
Yeah,
let's
you
say,
don't
well,
want
as
to
far
be
as I'm
doxing him.
concerned, that's next to one another. Blackpool, Blackburn, same thing, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a long way away from me.
Yeah, well, they could come down and see you, couldn't they? Down at the...
If they want to
Bedford.
come down and bring an auto level, yes, I would be more than happy to entertain Cats. Not so much Ranty, but I suppose I could put up with him.
Right.
I mean, he's almost as stupid as you are.
Right, I was just commenting to everybody about the...
Well,
'cause
Rumpus.
I don't think you've seen where the crosshairs would be. Have you?
I have not done a full observation of it yet, but that's because the weather's turned. I'm going to have to wait. It's now going to have to be the spring, unfortunately.
No, but you've not actually even put an auto level up on the bridge to have a look where the crosshairs
We have
would
not done
be.
a full observation with
Yeah.
targets
I
and
know.
auto levels yet.
I know. We have. You could have had a look.
Well, I object to you on principle, I'm afraid, Bev, and as you and that domesticated primate moron. I mean, I just don't. I do. Well, I you might have annoyed me, and I might have felt need. Well, also, I thought at the time you might have been trying to sabotage my observation, so I wouldn't be. I would be inclined to be somewhat. So I wanted to avoid getting a bit unpleasant. I suppose I wanted to avoid.
Can I just say something really quick, Rumpus? Okay,
You can.
first of all, I'm a very, very fast talker, and people always say, you're so excited, like, slow down, as you can hear. But you're really talking fast for me. And number two, you started off with domesticated primate, DP, that moron. Can we, like, keep that to a minimum? Like, and non-existent? Can we just have a conversation where
Well,
we're
I'm
not
trying to avoid it, but
demeaning
that-
people?
That guy
and
sends.
I
I've
don't...
tried.
Just
But that
no,
guy
don't
sends
try
obnoxious messages
to.
to people. Well,
Just
the
do.
trouble is, do you know what
Yeah,
sort of
just,
antics he
He's
goes
not
on?
even
like
here
that
right
means
now.
stop it, Rumpus.
Yeah, it means stop
wasn't
it.
that
I'm trying to
important.
be diplomatic and polite. He's not here to even defend himself. Let's just keep his name out of it and just have a conversation. That's it. It can be all chill.
Yes, well, I explained anyway to you, Bev, why I don't regard you as a very nice person, and I didn't want to, and I thought you might annoy me, and I didn't want to initiate any sort of confrontation, and I also thought there was a chance that you were trying to sabotage things, so
Yeah.
I didn't see any
know,
point
but
in
all I was saying
in
was
initiating
you
confrontation.
could have come over and just had a look at the auto level to see where the crosshairs were.
I could have done, yes.
Yeah, you could have done.
And then you might have said something to annoy me, like, I'm here to sabotage your observation, then I'd have been forced to get unpleasant about it, and I thought that wasn't a good
I
idea.
guess it's a whole imagination thing again, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like imagination time.
What are you talking about?
The things that never happened that you're already upset about, Bev, that he
Well,
didn't do.
well, I mean, I wanted to avoid, I didn't want to initiate any sort of confrontation, so I thought the best thing to do was not to go over there and potentially initiate a confrontation. It's quite simple.
Yeah, that was very grown up of you, Rumpus.
It was.
It was, yeah.
It was.
Yeah, we were all, we thought that's what would have happened, yeah.
Well, I don't, well, given that I regard you as fundamentally obnoxious, I don't know, my reaction to you saying something obnoxious might have been something that would have initiated a confrontation. So I thought, why go into that situation where I might get annoyed with you? So I'll avoid it. So I did. I didn't need to go there. Fortunately, on that day, I had much too much work to do on the target, so I didn't need to be there. I didn't need to speak to you. I mean, if I'd been someone else, a flat earther, like, say, Brian Mabbitt or something, I would have happily engaged with them, even though I obviously think he's a bit silly. But you are, I'm afraid,
Stop
below,
talking
beyond
about
the
other
pale.
people, Rumpus, please.
Anyway, I've explained why. Yes, I've explained to you why I didn't go over to you, because so that's why.
Right, but all I was saying was, if you had have come over, and if
I could have looked
you
through your
would
auto.
have
Yes, okay,
actually
yeah, but that's
looked
obvious.
through the auto level,
That's like saying 1 + 1 = 2, Bev. Yes, we
you
know.
would have
Had I gone
seen
over there and looked at the
how
auto level, I would have
far-
gone through the auto
Yeah.
level. Yes.
You
Yeah,
would
I
have
mean, that's-
seen
you're
how
stating the
far
obvious.
you have to get your
You are
noodle
stating
to
the
stretch
blindingly
upwards.
obvious. Yes, we all know
And
that.
I
We all
don't
understand
think-
that, Bev. If I'd
I
looked
don't
through the
think you
auto
can
level,
get
I would
your
have looked
noodle
through
up
the
high
auto
enough,
level.
Rumpus.
Well, when I do this in the spring, you will be able to see it, and I will. I've got the. I have to reposition all the targets back again, but I now know that I've got all the pieces of the puzzle in place. I can do the live broadcast. I've got the targets in place.
You
so they
can do
be
a live
seen,
broadcast,
etc., etc.
When did you test that?
Test what? Sorry, I missed that.
Your live broadcast. When did you test that?
Oh well, I haven't tested it publicly.
But when did you test it, though?
2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Nice. How many cameras did you have going?
Oh, just the way it wasn't a proper full blown thing. It was just a preliminary trial of the thing. So it wasn't the full blown
YouTube live
thing.
stream.
Yes, it was a YouTube live stream. Yeah. But it was
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
About your test. Is it possible for you to draw down a logical statement that you will then use your test to either prove or falsify?
Yes, I mean, if the Earth is curved, then I will have to raise up these targets at a proportionally greater distance, conforming to the formula for the curvature of the Earth as I go further away. To match the horizontal, I'll be looking through an auto level, which will tell me what's horizontal at the bridge, and then I'll have to see how far I'll have to raise up. If I don't have to raise them up, if I only have to raise them up to the level of the same level as the bridge and the auto level, then the Earth will be flat. If I have to raise them up that conforms with the formula for the curve, then I will show the Earth is curved.
What about if you shit yourself whenever you see a crosshairs in an auto level over there and realise you can't get your noodle high enough? What happens then? What would you say?
It's saying if I can't raise my target to the point where it matches the horizontal and the auto level.
Yeah.
I believe I've done all of the maths and calculations such that I've also allowed enough latitude in the height I can raise my targets to guarantee that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but you've not actually looked through an auto level, have you?
I've not done a full observation. I've already stated that 3 times.
Yeah. So you've not actually got a clue where the crosshairs would be, and
I
where
have
you
got-
actually have to get your new.
I've got enough latitude in my targets to allow if the Earth is flat, then the targets will be at one position, and I've got the sufficient latitude in the amount I can raise them so that if the Earth is then curved and they conform to the 8 inches mile squared formula, I will then have to raise them up by an extra 20 odd feet or so, 8 kilometers, and then to match the horizontal in the auto level. So I can do both things. I can demonstrate that the Earth is curved or flat, and I'll be able to point to it. And this will be broadcast live, hopefully, if we can get a sufficiently good signal at the other end. And then you'll be able to see actually the 20 extra feet on the target that we've had to raise it by to make it match the position of the auto level on Welney Bridge.
And what happens if you can do neither?
I believe I've allowed in the maths and the position of things and the site, the targets can be raised such that I can cover both scenarios.
Yeah,
what
but what
if
if you
he
neither?
doesn't get there? Can you just answer the question?
Well, I don't believe. If I can't get it to match both things, I've promised Brian Mabbitt that I would jump in if there was no drop into the canal. So he's going to be there and to monitor that I stick to my word. So that's what will happen if there's no drop, and I don't have to raise the targets above the level they are at the bridge already. So the bridge is 15 feet above the water. So if I don't have to raise the targets more than 15 feet, then the Earth will be flat. Obviously, I have to allow for refraction as well, but that's a small factor. Then I would. I said to Brian Mabbitt that I would jump in the water. But I've allowed enough latitude in the heights that I can raise the targets such that I can accommodate both scenarios, both whether the Earth is flat and the extra 20 feet of whether the Earth is curved.
So it's either or. It's either flat or curved if you raise it 20 feet. There is no in between there, or is it
I can cope with
curve
anything.
all the way?
Okay, I've allowed for the curvature I believe the Earth to have, and anything in between that and being flat. In fact, I've actually got more latitude. I've got extra. Hold on. I've got extra latitude. So in fact, if the Earth is smaller than I believe, the radius is smaller than I believe, then it's the scientifically accepted value. Then I still would be. Then I'd have to raise it up by say 25 feet, and I've got enough extra margin of error that I could do that as well. So I could cover a radius of the Earth probably about half the accepted value down to it being flat. I've got enough margin of error to cope with all those scenarios, anywhere in between. And my calculation, I'll then be able to do a calculation by how much I've had to raise them all, and that will give me a radius of the Earth. So I would get a radius of the Earth out of this observation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's actually awesome. I was going to ask exactly that, but you covered it at the end, so thank you.
Really good. Yeah, so in fact, there will be a live coverage I will actually have on the bottom of my YouTube stream. Will be saying the value of the radius of the Earth given the observations of where the targets are at the moment is X, and obviously as the refraction might move things up and down a bit, would have to allow for that as well, and then say allowing for standard refraction. Then if I'm also have some thermistor arrays there, which will be able to tell us what the temperature gradient is, which determines what the refraction is, and so I'll be able to include that factor in. And so as the day goes on, it's quite possible that radius value that I'm determining on screen will change, but that will obviously just reflect the fact that I'm not allowing for refraction correctly. But nonetheless, that's what I'll have to do. I'll have to say, with these, I'll have this vertical temperature gradient. That'll tell me what the refraction is. I'll then take that off the raised height, and then I'll know that for each one, because obviously that will vary for each of the 4 targets I've got, and say I will then from that be able to determine the value of the radius, and that might vary dependent. If I do it correctly, the radius value would remain constant throughout the day, and that means I'm allowing for a refraction correctly. But the refraction conditions do definitely change, so But if I can allow for that correctly, then my radius value, it's quite possible I won't be able to allow for the refraction values correctly, and my radius value may go up and down.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, I got a question too.
Oh man,
just real quick. What if? This crazy idea. What if you had to raise the target up to like I don't know, like 110 feet.
Well, obviously, there's a limit. I can cope with the value of the radius of the Earth is, say, half the accepted value. I think I can still accommodate that in the amount I've got to raise it up. I can raise it up by about 30 feet, and it's on a bank, so I've got a leeway. I think I've got a leeway of about 10 feet going up more. So I'm expecting to have this value, and but I could go another 10 feet up, which I think gives something like that would be half the radius of the value, half the radius of the Earth.
I know, but just what if you did have to raise it up like to a crazy height? I mean, what would be?
Well, obviously
what would you say?
Well, I would say first of all that something odd going on with the refraction. Hopefully, that I would also at the same time be getting some weird values of the refraction conditions. So, for instance, if we had a sinking refraction scenario, hopefully that would be reflected in the measurements we're getting in these thermistor arrays, telling me what the temperature gradient is, and then I'll be able to say, haha, if I allow for this refraction, then it's still the value it is. But if it isn't, if the temperature conditions, the thermistors are telling me it's normal standard conditions, and I see that, then I've obviously got a problem. But of course, I don't believe that's going to happen.
The crosshairs won't move, Rumpus, right? Surely.
I'm sorry.
Yes, they would if the refraction changes. The crosshairs make sense, but obviously what you see moves up and down. That's what refraction is. So if I'm looking through the crosshairs throughout the day, I mean, hopefully you've seen in various videos where people look. You've got a constant fixed camera. I mean, even Travis has had this, where he's been monitoring something over a period of 10 minutes, where what he's been looking at, he's kept the camera in a constant position, and what he's been looking at has been moving up and down considerably. So that is refraction. So the crosshairs will appear to move in the video, but of course they're in a fixed orientation, and it's what you're looking at is moving up and down. Do you not understand that?
Can I ask a quick? It's a two-part question. Can I ask a? Okay. You said you're assuming a flat Earth in this test?
No, I'm not assuming any shape of Earth at all.
Okay.
But it can accommodate a flat Earth or, an Earth, I think, possibly down to
part
2/3.
one of the question.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you were, were you accounting for the curvature while assuming a flat Earth in this test? And that's it. That's all I had.
I didn't understand that second question. I'm not assuming any curvature of the Earth at all. I'm
accounting for Earth radius while assuming, but you said you're not assuming a flat Earth, right? You're not assuming.
I'm not assuming anything. I'm just going to take the observation, and from the observation, I'll be able to determine whether the Earth is flat or has a curvature.
So, are you taking curvature into account while not assuming anything?
No, I'm not assuming anything. So I'm not taking anything to account. I'm just making an observation.
Radius, and then you said account.
Oh my God! I'll try it again. I'm not assuming any shape at all, and what I will see will give me whether the Earth has a radius or it's flat.
But you said
Jesus Christ!
You're allowing certain leeway with
certain
things to fit within a certain.
No, I'm not.
I heard you say it.
No, I was talking about refraction. Jesus
I know.
Christ!
And the refraction is within a certain parameters. If you fall outside of that parameter, then something is obviously wrong with your calculation. Not what you're saying.
So if I have to raise it up,
so you are accounting for it.
No, I'm not accounting. Oh my God! The only thing I'm allowing, the only thing I'm accounting for is refraction. So I have to say, for instance, if I'm looking through it, and let's suppose we've got some sort of extreme looming condition like the black swan, for instance, which is possible in the evening. So let's suppose in the morning it looks like one way, and then in the evening, where you can get extreme refraction, extreme looming, and it does that. But if my thermistors tell me, because what the temperature gradient is, and therefore what the density gradient is, that will tell me what I have to allow for with refraction. So that when I determine what the real position of the targets are, I would do that by obviously looking through the auto. We'll raise up the targets up so they appear to be in the auto levels crosshairs, the graticule, and then I will then subtract the effect of refraction that I believe exists as a result of my thermistor measurements, and then from that I will be able to determine the radius of the Earth. So if I do have a case where there are things like the black swan, extreme looming, I've got the targets look way up, way above where they were in the early period of the day. But fortunately, my refraction measurements say that is accounted for. Now, obviously, I've got a problem if my measurements of the temperature gradient say, no, the temperature is perfectly normal, we should be having standard refraction, and I observe the targets being very high, then obviously there's something gone wrong, either with my calculations of refraction. But I haven't made any. The only thing I'm making assumptions about is how refraction works. I'm not making any assumptions about the curvature of the Earth, whether it's flat or curved. There's nothing fixed or allowed about that. The only thing is for refraction.
Okay. So when you measure those things, are you measuring them? Like the heights?
You're breaking up. You have to repeat that.
Said that when you get these measurements for the heights of the different poles.
You're breaking up again. You're going to have to say it again. I don't know if it's me or you.
Is that me breaking up for everyone, or?
Nah, it was clear on my end.
Yeah, me too.
Was it just me then?
Yeah, it sounds like it, Rumpus. Sounds like it.
That seems unlikely.
Yeah.
So everyone else could hear Bev clearly, could they?
Massively.
Yeah, I can hear Bev clear, and I can hear you clearly.
And I can hear you clearly. It's only Bev I'm having a problem with.
Okay.
It never broke up.
Try again, Bev. See if it's behaving itself now.
I've forgotten what I was saying, Rumpus.
You were saying something. If I have to raise up the targets, I think you said.
How are you measuring them?
How I lost that. I don't know whether you were speaking. The word I got was measuring. How am I measuring? I'm measuring. I've got a tape against the posts, a tape measure, and that reads off how much I've had to raise up the post above its default position. And I've also surveyed the base of the post, so I know I can add on how much I know how much far the target is down to the tape measure. I can then add on whatever the tape measure says. I can then add on that to a surveyed point at the base of the post, which is I know relative to the water. I know what the observation point is relative at the Welney end relative to the water. So therefore I know the difference in height between the auto level and the target.
Okay. So you know that bit at the top end, you know that is relative
Salter's
to
load.
Newlyn. Yeah.
In the Sluicegate, what about it?
You know that is the Newlyn mean sea level.
I don't need to know the Newlyn sea level. All I need to know is the height. I'm using the water, like a water level in the canal, because I know it's the same. Because I know it's level because there's no flow there, and therefore I can use that if I measure the height of the target above the water. And I measure the height of the auto level above the water, I then know the height between the auto level and the target. And if the Earth is flat, those two things will be the same.
You know that scale.
Wait a minute. You just said you're not assuming anything.
Oh my God.
Well,
yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Jesus Christ, you're a moron,
that
aren't you?
Scale at the top end of the water.
Who's the idiot who keeps on saying that, who's not understanding what's going on?
That,
if the two values are the same, then the Earth will have to be flat. It's very simple. It's a conclusion. I'm not making an assumption, but if the two values are the same, then that indicates that the Earth would be flat. If the auto level's at 15 feet, and I only have to raise the target so that it's 15 feet above the water as well, then and it's horizontal in the auto level, then that means that the water has not curved, and that the auto level and the target are exactly the same height and exactly the same height above the water. Therefore, the Earth is flat. There's nothing. You seem to be implying as though it's a conclusion from the observation. Who's the idiot who keeps on saying that? Go ahead, Bev.
Yeah. See the in the chat live stream.
No, I'm not looking. This is you're streaming to your channel, is it, or something?
No, in this Discord server, Rumpus. If you forgot how to use.
Oh right, I'm not looking at the. Okay, where's in the live stream? What live stream to text?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that means sea level indicator. Yeah.
Right, that is at Salter's load, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So what?
You see those numbers on it?
Yeah. So what? It's telling you the height of the water level with respect to mean sea level. Yes. So.
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier. That is
okay. Fine.
Respect to Newlyn. right?
Yeah, so what? Yes. So
So-
what? We're not interested in that. We're interested in the height of the auto level with respect to the target and whether or not. And I'm using the water as a reference level. It doesn't matter. There says 20 feet, 2 feet, 2 inches. That thing you're showing me on the screen now. The important point is the auto level the same height above the water as the target?
say,
If they are
Rumpus?
the same, then the
What does
Earth
it
is
say,
flat. Jesus
Rumpus?
Christ!
What does it say on that thing?
What does what say? That sign?
height does it say? Yeah.
You know what it is. You tell me. It's much better. Why are you? You're asking me to
Can you
read
not
off
read
what
it?
it says.
Can you not see it? I was just making sure.
It's irrelevant.
I'll put it
It's
on.
utterly
I'll
irrelevant.
put it on.
It's
Can you-
utterly
can you-
irrelevant to the test.
can you
If you
read
think
it?
it's
Can you
relevant,
read the
if you
numbers?
think it's relevant,
What do you
whereas
think
I
it
can see
is?
4. The last one I can see clearly is a 4.
Yeah.
That's what you're asking me. So this is
Can
an
you
eye
see-
test,
Can
is
you
it
see
now?
like a 3 at the top?
Yes.
And then can you see the 2?
Yes.
Right. So then you're going down from that, right?
Right. So this is an eye test, is it? Now you're giving me.
No, this is a whether you can read a measurement.
Yes, I
sort of
can.
thing.
It's an eye test. You're giving me
It's
an
a
eye
bit-
test now.
it's a
Whether I
bit
can read
dirty
3,
down
2,
at
and
the bottom. Yeah. How good are
Yeah,
your
so
eyes?
you ask this as an
Rumpus?
eye test. Yes, I can read the numbers. I can see numbers.
Okay.
They're so
Well,
what?
do
It's
you
not
reckon it says
relevant to the test.
It's the height above Newland, right?
Yes, I
Mean
know it
sea
is. You
level.
said that 4 times, and I said that doesn't
So
matter, you moron.
That would make
Jesus
it.
Christ!
What would that make
It's
it?
not
Around
relevant to the test. What matters is
1.3
using the
meters.
water as a reference to know how high the target is with relation to the auto level. It doesn't matter
1.2
whether
or
that reads 20 feet, 3 feet, 17 feet. And what's more, it doesn't matter if it changes
Reckon it's
during my
meters.
test
I'd
because
say
I've
it's
used
meters.
the water to establish the relationship between a
Rumpus.
position on the bridge and the position of the base of the post. That could go up and down by 10 feet
Rumpus.
and it would not affect my test.
Can't go
You
up and down by
moron.
10 feet, Rumpus.
Jesus
Can you
Christ,
stop
you're
calling
a dick.
people morons,
But he's a
please?
moron. I'm sorry, but he's a
No.
moron.
Just stop.
But he's a
Just-
moron, though. We can't
Just-
ignore the fact that he's a moron. He doesn't understand. It's not
Well,
relevant. What do I,
you're-
we've got to say this. It's got to be said.
Oh,
He's a
goodness.
moron,
You're-
and he doesn't understand that
You're
that
just
measurement is
stupid.
irrelevant to
Stop.
the test.
Okay.
Just behave. It's
I
not
want-
that hard.
When Rumpus, when you say utterly, it's enough. It's strong enough. That's cool enough to make.
This is amazing.
Hey, Rumpus, I got one question. Hopefully it's
No,
on topic.
no, wait a minute.
Okay. Got it.
We have to deal with this. This is 1.25 or 1.3 meters above mean sea level, Rumpus.
So what, you moron?
Can you see how that scale is measured?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to anything.
It is. It's relevant
No, it's not.
to the mean sea level.
Yes, but that's not relevant to my test.
How far away is it from Newlyn?
Who cares, you moron?
What do you mean, who cares? It's mean sea
It's
level,
utterly
Rumpus.
irrelevant to my test. And the fact that you don't understand that makes you a moron.
It's 1.25, 1.3
Irrelevant.
meters. It's
Utterly
not
irrelevant.
The
Utterly
guy, Have you
irrelevant.
ever had a word with the guy that is at the locks there?
Utterly irrelevant
Have
to
you,
my test.
You've never had a word with him? We did.
Utterly
We had a
irrelevant
nice
to my
chat.
test.
We've only been there once.
Utterly irrelevant to my test. There's no bearing whatsoever on my observation.
That's the guy that controls the...
Irrelevant.
Why do you think those scales are there, Rumpus?
Irrelevant to my test.
Because he has to control the floodwater.
Irrelevant to
and
my
the
test.
water to...
Holy fuck, stop being a broken record and
But
stop
he
being
keeps
a
on saying
child.
the same thing.
Rumpus.
He keeps on implying this has got
Rumpus,
something to do with my
Rumpus,
test.
shut up.
Irrelevant.
Rumpus,
No, he can shut up.
You're being
Stop.
a child.
No, tell
You're
him to
being
stop
a fucking
referring
child.
to this. No, he's a
You
moron who
realize
doesn't
that
understand.
the only
This is
one in
not
this room
relevant
that looks like
to
a
my
moron
test.
is you right
This
now?
is not relevant to my test.
Why are
so
you
why
still
is he bringing it
talking?
up? Why is he
Why
bringing
are
it
you
up when it's
still
not
talking?
relevant? Why are you
You
still
don't
talking?
ever shut up, do you?
Why
Just
don't
keep
you shut
fucking
up?
going.
Because you don't understand that it's not relevant to
You know,
my
half
test.
these
presumably.
people in here aren't even listening to you anymore because you
Fine.
just keep saying the
Well,
same fucking shit.
No, Bev is saying the same thing. He keeps on making the same point, and it's not relevant to my test.
Okay, Rumpus, take a chill pill and just listen. Let's have a conversation. You're using moron like every other word. We don't understand. You don't understand. I don't understand. Like, just please.
calm down. Let's have a
Right.
that
well,
hard.
I'd like to say, somebody says it's irrelevant, but we were talking about the heights of the targets and where they were measured to. Turns out that they were measured to the water level in the canal, which is also relevant, and it's actually measured with that scale in it, to the mean sea level for the entire country. So whenever you hear of any elevations or anything measured, it's measured to that mean sea level. Now, that's 1.3 meters above mean sea level, which means it's very low for that area because they have to drain it. They have to take very careful measurements of that water. Now, that entire body of water that Rumpus is measuring all of his poles to, that he's saying is going to be dropping, is all 1.3, 1.25, whatever it reads on that thing, up
But
until the next sluice gate.
Yeah, you do this, right? Like, can you tell me, because I don't do this stuff, is that,
Are
can
you
you
coming in to save Rumpus, or is that because he's been muted?
tell me it's flat curve from that thing you're talking about, or no? Because I used to draw the pictures. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sorry?
are you what you're talking about right now to draw the picture and be like, look, it's definitely one way or another, or is it still just showing how we don't? It's like we got to get it unmixed.
Yeah,
You know what I'm-
that's whatever. Phew, yeah, damn right. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Include-
Yeah, definitely. Too right.
Which
Yeah,
I'm saying, I know
super. Cool. Brilliant. Yeah,
rep,
fantastic.
rep it real quick. I know you rep it, but does this item, this data that you talk about right here,
They did it.
prove it one way or another? Tell me which one is it proven?
They're failing.
Yeah, why you can't stand up to the challenge? That's it.
Which
one little
one's
question.
what proving? What, the mean sea level being at 1.3 meters above the mean sea level for the entire UK?
Bro. Yes, whatever they're measuring, are they bullshitting and just pretending?
No, that
This
is
cur-
really, it is. We had a word with the guy that does the locks. It's definitely the height of the water above the mean sea level for the entire UK.
Okay.
Measured at Newlyn. Yep.
Does it mean it's flat?
No, it's not flat, is it?
I don't know, bro. You the man. You tell me.
There's a measurement, a vertical measurement on the scale. Right, that changes. It's not flat. Right?
Well,
There's
I don't know.
different elevations all over the place. That proves it's not flat. What do you think? Do you think Rumpus is going to find the drop of the water?
I'll ask the question, Bev. How far away is Newland from those points?
I wouldn't know. Like miles, like 100 miles. I don't know. Quite a fair way. It's the other side of the London, isn't it?
All it would take is for one to do a little bit of critical thinking to work that out.
Well, Rumpus, what Rumpus is going to be doing, right? The mean sea level on that thing there is 1.3 meters. Now, Rumpus is going to go to the other edge of a bridge 6 miles away from where that particular measuring thing is. He's then going to put an auto level up and go across, and he's going to measure a height he is above the water. He's going to set it up, and he's going to lift the stick up. He's not actually going to get anywhere near where he thinks he's going to get near. And I know that because I know he's never put an auto level up. We have.
Right. You do your auto level things. And,
It would help if Rumpus had. But, right, do you think Rumpus is going to find that there's like a 10-foot drop or something of the water level over that 6 miles when it's only 1.3 meters above mean sea level to start off with? Like what drops he getting? Do you think?
Rumpus, what do you think? You know, that's way pretty far in there, Rumpus.
He's deafened.
Oh, that's goofball.
Yeah. He does that. He might be listening on YouTube.
He got mad from the other channel. Came down here, bro.
What do you
Whatever
think? Do you think he might?
Bro, I seen you do
Get the drop.
thing. You ain't got no precision as soon as you was like a couple 100 feet away, bro.
How much? Yeah, how much drop do you think Rumpus is gonna measure on his canal when he gets to do it in the spring? Let's have an early prediction.
He's gonna predict an expectation of a nut hair.
What about you? What do you predict Rumpus will? Do you predict
Same
Rumpus will go? Do you think he will? I don't think he will, because I think he'll shit himself whenever he looks through an auto level.
But here's all I'm saying, man. You
When
got
he
all this.
eventually gets chance to.
Here's what I mean. You could bust it open. I've seen you do your little draw. You do the work. So like, if you knew you could show this flatness, you'd be showing it, man. You'd be showing it a lot more.
It's not flat.
He already has shown it. Nobody has taken the time to ask questions about the actual picture that was taken.
He talking about it's not flat, right? But then like he's talking about this elevation. So like you could have a pretend baseline from shore to shore, toes in the water, right? Because water level. And then yeah, you have your elevation from your marker point, but that's what gives you your freaking triangle, bro. I mean, you know you want that.
Yeah,
you know
hubble lump, and as well, don't forget about that.
I consider it fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Crux. I'm trying to understand what is it that you're trying to say?
He's not saying anything. This is what he does, right? This is
Where's
what
I'm
he's resigned to. This is all they've got.
You don't. I'm just asking you for your data, and the fact that you can't interpret that is kind of worrisome, bro.
It's like freestyle. It's like rap, but it's like a globe argument rap type stuff.
English, but yet it's like snobby and overly cocky than the average person. I mean, are we gonna talk about each other's voice, bro? Like,
I mean, what are you trying to say? Try and make it, put something together that makes some sense.
where's your data, bro? Like you talking about all the ways to do it, and you pro at it. So where's the data showing the conclusive determination of the topography?
Sorry, I don't speak street.
Yeah, you can't speak. You can't speak about topography.
I'm trying to speak to you right now, and I'm trying to understand exactly what it is that you're saying. What are you trying to say?
I'm thirsty for Bev's data since he works on this stuff and has the open mind to show.
What data? What data are you looking for? You want elevations from sea level?
He just showed that.
So what data are you looking for, man? Just let us know. We'll give it to you, man.
Yes.
Do you want like
was looking for
data, the
Rumpus.
Star Trek character? We can give you that. He's around here somewhere.
Do you want like flat haircut or like? I mean, what's up with your?
Bro, this is your bro. You came in here as like, yo, Bev, you're the expert. Blah, blah, yeah, the data, and then we're like, okay, what data are you looking for? And now you're just like stumped.
Get on camera and draw it for us. He'll show us on the board, and that's what I'm saying.
What
like,
data?
was
What data are you looking for?
whatever he was talking about, this little thing to play with. So I was just gonna be like, yo, show me the, show it. Just work out the
Show
diagram.
what? Show what are you looking to get shown?
You got to talk for him, and he can't talk, isn't it? It's pretty sad.
Oh, you know what, Crux?
I'm just showing how you obfuscate. You can't articulate your point clearly.
Yo,
There are multiple people in here that are probably not speaking up, and all of us are wondering what it is that
draw the point that you
give us the point, and then we can talk about it.
I was wondering if you would draw the point that the thing you were pointing out, that Rumpus is going to get an expectation of drop, okay, because of him looking through the auto level and blah blah blah. I wonder if you would be willing to draw that and walk through and then show why it's relevant, and it's going to determine one way or another whether or not we can or cannot determine the flatness and therefore the levelness of the water and all this. I love you to walk through and do a diagram why anything you were fucking saying has any relevance. How about that, Bev?
He just showed a picture of the water level in the canal that's referenced from miles away at Newland from sea level. And it's that same marker that's all the way down through the canal. If you can't work that out, you shouldn't be asking questions.
Well, not to mention it's Rumpus's test he's asking Bev to draw.
Yeah. And actually, if you want to have a look, right, because we did go there. Like when Rumpus was saying earlier that he didn't want to, I don't know, get all whatever. I think he just shit himself and ran off. When we were there, we were taking pictures. So there's a picture there of the sluice gates taken from the bridge. There's also a picture above that, the pink one, infrared. So you can see the bridge in the distance and the sluice gates in the distance. If you can imagine Rumpus around about where the B is for bridge, 6 miles there, about here, with his little stick, waving it about in the air. When you can see the sluice gates at the other end, they're quite high, about as high as what Rumpus is going to be holding his stick up. So the sluice gates are already there. And you can already see them. You can see the water going all the way up and actually going underneath the bridge all the way to the sluice gates at the other end. So you can see the water doing that in the picture, right? You can also see the far back view of because that is taken through the sluice gates, that picture. So you can see the sluice gates through the middle of those sluice gates at the other end.
That last picture you posted, is that the crosshair I'm seeing?
No.
Or is that like just a power line?
No. The crosshair isn't quite that high, but ooh.
That's what I was thinking.
It would be somewhere. I mean, Rumpus might know what it looks like, but I doubt it because Rumpus has never put an auto level up there. He's never even attempted it. Because he wouldn't be trying to put sticks up if he knew what he was doing. If he knew how high he'd have to get his stick, his noodle, in the air, he wouldn't be doing it. In fact, that's what he might be doing at the minute. He absolutely will not be putting an auto level up in the spring and letting everybody see all of the different things and stations and whatnot that he's told everybody he is going to do. He will not be doing that. The moment he looks through an auto level, which he could have done if he'd have just come over and had a look. He didn't know. So it's going to be good. Rumpus not doing his test that he's going to say he's going to do. Like Ranty.
How do you tell the difference between an elevation change that's from topography and the elevation change that's from a change that's due to curvature? How do you differentiate those two?
One of them can be measured and the other one's just a thought. There's no curvature to the level.
Oh yeah, well even the curve would be the curve is topography, right? You'd be hard pressed to try and say that the curve of the Earth is not a topography.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to look at that water and say it's dropping at that far end. Right, I can hold a stick up over there, and that will prove that the water's dropping.
But nobody sees it like doing that from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did it in 50 meter increments, it wouldn't drop.
Yeah.
But it's dropping.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's brave myself. I mean, Wallace and all of those people that didn't actually do what they said they didn't do, and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, that was a hump. But this new breed of Glober is taking it into the new... Like, this has never been done before. Nobody's ever tried to figure out the quadratic equation into the drop of the water level that isn't actually dropping. It takes some special brain work to be able to do that. I admire Rumpus for taking the ballers to this area. I'm going to love it. This is going to be great, right?
Does the drop just become infinite at the quarter way around? Like, how does that work? Because you're measuring the drop from the horizontal, but at that on a ball, right? Like at the quarter way, there is no more. It's just down. Now you're going to come back around. So
don't Penrose yourself with the quadratic, right? I mean, it's an impossibility in reality, but I mean that's not up to us to deal with. Hey, I'm not dealing with that.
Thank God, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to try to explain that to my kids. They ask so many questions, bro. You'd be pulling your hair out trying to.
Can you imagine trying to explain it? Because most of your time we would surely be explaining it to Globers, right? Because they're not going to understand it. But then obviously there's people like Rumpus that are going to go and measure it. So, I mean, obviously Rumpus would be able to explain it to everybody. Should they need him to explain it? How the water can drop, but not drop. The not drop. Like the elevation change that would be a measured drop, but not that type of drop, because obviously there's no drop there. I mean, it's fantastic.
And no hump in the middle.
Yeah,
absolutely no fucking hump.
And add a quadratic equation into it, right? Only 2 inches over the first half a mile, but then the second half of a mile you add 6. Yeah, that's
careful how you measure it.
Dead easy.
You don't want to measure too much at once.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't go with your tape measure, otherwise you'll have to start again.
It's insanity, man. It's just utter insanity.
I think you're better
They've
off.
never
just
done
not
anything. They
thinking
couldn't.
about it. Yeah, you're best off just not thinking about it.
Yeah, bro. When I build a ton of stuff, bro, and I just work in straight lines, right? Like I work in straight lines. I take a piece of wood, I put the level on it, right? And you want to get where you're going to screw it in. You're going to want to get them lined up. It's just I don't know where. They don't do anything. That's the problem. They're not out there working with this stuff.
Sorry, sir. It's a misconception that light works in straight lines. Unfortunately.
Wow.
When did I say light?
Yeah.
I was talking about. I was building a treehouse, my man. I put a piece of wood, right, and I put 2 bolts in it, and I make sure the bolts are both at the same level, right? In the wood, it's all level. Yeah, light. I don't.
Making observations, you can take your straight lines and shove them unless you're mapping out a path. The straight line's only relevant if you're going to go straight off to the fucking edge of your earth or around the ball, bro. Other than that, what is a straight line good for, bro?
The shortest distance between 2 points.
Show it. Show the distance between the edge of the earth, man. That's all we should be interested in.
Bro, I'm making a fucking treehouse. What do I need to go to the What do I need to go to the end of the earth for, bro?
We all made a treehouse.
Bro, 10 feet, man. That's about 10, maybe 20 if I'm going deluxe. Like, I don't need to measure United States to make use of a straight line, man. Come on.
No, we need to measure the earth to make use of it, bro. That's the whole issue. Put that here, Clint.
Yeah, what earth? Yeah, what the ground? You got to measure the ground. A tree.
Or maybe just a map.
I got tons
measure
of
a
maps,
map.
bro.
It's got a scale
Yeah,
on it. It's already been done. If it's on a map, it's already been measured.
Touch each other pieces. That's how you do it.
It's already done, dude.
Has it been?
Bro,
I have a
have
question.
you not driven around?
I'm sorry, Crux. I'm looking at your rules, and it says that you're like a globe skeptic. You're still researching. You think there's more land. All these different things, and we're talking to you about logic, and you are arguing against it. These kind of things don't coincide. So are you what's going on with your rules, and what's actually happening here?
What's happening? You all talk slow, and I talk fast. So if you want to learn some logic, maybe you should just listen.
No.
You're just obviously here to disrupt. That's all.
Yeah.
Clear.
No, I talk very, very, very fast. People tell me to slow down all the time. So you can speed up when you're talking. I still hear what you're saying.
Fast. You don't communicate progression of ideas and or problem solving ideas quickly. You just talk about problems.
What are you talking about? I asked you a very simple question. I wasn't talking about any kind of problems.
Problem. What is he talking about? Yet another problem. that I have.
Yeah,
I'm gonna mute him.
I think this guy is. I think we can move on.
everything.
If somebody has something to say, I think it would be great to talk to somebody else because that was. I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah. He was purposely clipping you and your mic every time he was talking. So
Yeah, because I had to unplug my microphone because I'm having issues. So, yeah, he was definitely doing that. On top of that, he wasn't really
saying anything.
Yeah,
he wasn't. So, if somebody else, I would love to hear from other people if they have any actual genuine questions, something to bring to the table. Anything would be awesome.
Bro, you can see how they it's like nobody wants to talk logic. They want to talk about the Earth. When this thing they don't even, this the Big E. Let's worship at the debate of the Big E. Forget logic.
well, yeah, I've got this is another logic one I've got since we should get back onto logic. This was the first one I did. Logic, and this one came around when QE was doing the Black Swan, and I thought the Black Swan wasn't formulated properly, didn't go all the way to its core, and it left them wiggle room for the argument. So this is what the Black Swan should have been. Call it an ode to the Black Swan. If the Earth is a spherical object, P, then the surface of liquid water must curve, Q. This is the beauty of logic. You don't need the opposing side to argue. You can just check your logic by flipping them round and checking it out. So I then say a water level is a tool to establish a horizontal plane of reference. Therefore, not Q, no curve.
And you'll notice that both of them in this, there's no refraction, there's no wiggle room, right? And that's what I feel refraction is. It's wiggle room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Rumpus is playing with. The wiggle room, his thermistors and the temperature and the refraction. You can always dial a number to get another bit working and pull it back, and we can change it. And when he's like a Rumpus, he's going to have his running display of what the radius is with all of his different calculators. As he's winding on his winches, the numbers are going to be changing, the fluctuations. Won't happen, but I mean, it sounds brilliant. It sounds great. Like having altering. He doesn't seem to have allowed for the fact that the water's not actually dropping at all, and it can't drop. It's a logical inconsistency thinking that both sides of the water can drop from wherever you are.
If you're measuring something and you're getting like a refraction difference, I think you gotta like get closer, right? That's the bottom line. Get closer.
I have an issue with the whole refraction thing, period. I think that QE has some great points about terrestrial refraction, that refraction does happen at the boundary between two mediums. I even bought different prisms, spherical, triangle, squares, rectangle, and I bought lasers, putting them through them, and nothing seems to actually really occur. Sometimes it will happen on the sphere, but that's only if you bring the laser really close to it, and it will only happen literally at the boundary. Like, at the boundary, the light will switch, and then it will still go straight, but like something will happen at that boundary, then through the actual sphere, it will still shoot straight through it, but you will see like a hiccup and then shooting straight through it to the other side. So I think that there are new words that need to be made for what is actually occurring I think that, mirage, looming, all miraging, mirroring, those kinds of things actually do occur. But I think there's a lot more to investigate and see what is actually occurring. But I do not think that what they are stating is happening, where something that is physical is being lifted and projected, curve that isn't actually there is somehow there, even though, and that people hit targets even though it's not actually there, and somehow that target is being, loomed around something. I mean, it's nonsense. But I do think that the language, there's something to be developed within language of the language that is being used, and I don't think there's even room for that when we're talking to certain people. They're stuck on that language, they're stuck on those definitions, but I'm hoping that within our
That's what got me booted from Nathan's little crew. I didn't subscribe to the whole bouncing light.
Well, that's funny because, that's where, QE talks about it. QE is the one who's mentioning that, this isn't refraction. It isn't refraction. And so I started looking into it, and I was like, actually, he's right. I went and did tests. Like, I started getting things. I got a laser. I doing different light tests with certain objects to figure out what is refraction. Does it only happen at the boundary between mediums? Like, what is actually going on? And it really does only happen at the boundary. There's like a tiny little space where this refraction, quote unquote, takes place, where the light literally does bend and will do something else, but then it will go right back to the way that it's supposed to go. It's hard to explain. Maybe I can do a live on it sometime. But what is happening, like if you look at Sky Free, if you look at all these other channels doing things, it does have heat, cold, different things like that. Miraging definitely takes place. Mirroring definitely takes place. There are certain phenomena that do take place within the medium that we're in. But it's not lifting and bending complete land masses, cities, all these different things to appear where they shouldn't be, where people can hit targets and they shouldn't even possibly be there, but somehow, even though it's quote unquote refracted up, the shooter is able to hit it because it's somehow, going around a curve and is able to, it's just ridiculous. But I do think that the language can be touched upon to where I think that there's room for us on our side to bringing more to the table and explaining things. I think that's the best way I can say it.
Well, when I'm talking about, when I say I don't subscribe to refraction, I just don't subscribe to the whole, like the bendy light, the light moving in a wave, or even, that's even connecting light to vision, right? Which is not, the method. So it's just, I'm in terms of the visuals, I think Travis, he kind of got it best. There's that medium, right? It's just a medium between you and the, and if you think about the medium, like the air is like water, right? If it's moving, it's going to be blurry. Whereas if it's still, it's going to be clearer. So there's no bending of light. So this is how I see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's what I mean. Like, when we try and, I think there's so much room for us to actually take advantage of all of this and really, hone down on the language and actually come up with terminology of, this is what we're witnessing here, this is what we're witnessing there. We can actually place names to it, create definitions, create logic surrounding it, because it is so illogical where it is standing right now. They just put blanket terms to everything that's going on, and none of it is actually what's actually happening. So it really does leave this red carpet laid out for us to do better. You know what I mean? We have an advantage here, and we can actually start saying, okay, if we investigate this, what's happening here, what's happening there, and we have so many people on this witnessing what is happening with light, doing these tests, going out and looking what's happening with quote-unquote refraction when we know it's not that, or mirages, fata morganas, all these different things, that I think we have a lot to bring to the table here. And we have the upper hand because we're actually looking into it and being honest and being logical.
This is why every logical, we always start with the definitions. We go from scratch and work our way up. That way, when we get to advanced stuff, everybody's on the same page still.
Exactly. And if we can create the definitions by clearly stating, by doing enough tests to say, like, this is what we witness, this is what's happening, this has been reproduced over and over and over again, this is what we see, it would be really cool to have new words, have definitions, and bring that to the table. Instead of just relying on what they're saying things are.
I think you're going to run into trouble trying to figure out light. That's going to be I think where I would say it'd be much easier for me to set up a straight horizontal reference frame, so to speak, than it would be for me to explain to you how light works, and more useful.
Well, yeah, and I don't think we need to explain how light works. We can explain it in the physical terms, right? Rather than the light terms, we explain it in the right. Like, this is what is happening to this physical object. I don't know. I mean, nobody can. I don't think anybody can ever explain exactly what light is, but I think we can get closer to a definition than they ever.
Not a chance.
But we can get exactly to a horizontal, right? And that's where you start. You're always going to start with what you can do, not what is very hard to achieve. So I would, if somebody was, I would even go so far as to say that establishing a horizontal, as silly as it seems, is part of the path to figuring out light. You have to get all your foundations in order.
Yep. Bang on with you. Start off where you can, and that's where you start off. Make sure you're on a firm grounding, that you can have something to start off with.
And that's exactly what I mean. Like, don't make any claim that claim cannot be made. But at the same time, if we're witnessing, even if it comes down to, okay, maybe we're not making definitions, but we can demolish definitions that are already had. Maybe that's a better stance. We can say, this is not what's occurring, like, to the fullest depths, rather than just saying, blanket statement, it's not refraction. Like, really explain how it is not. Showcase, like, this is not what is occurring. This is not some kind of mirage. This is not something being lifted and bended over a curve, to the point where it's ad nauseum that we know exactly what it's not, even if we're not defining what it actually is.
I think that's already been done. All of the individual pieces are already out there.
Yeah, that'll come with the once you have the fundamental basics, right? Like, and this is why I say it also, you have a particle, you have travel, you have motion, all of that falls apart, right? You have this thing that travels at a speed that doesn't change even when it's going through the logic and the basics will, it's like something lower killing something higher. Like, just because it's this super advanced theory doesn't mean it can't be taken out by some low level logic.
See, and my point is that I don't think that it has been, explained ad nauseum, because I'm constantly seeing people defending, like, the black swan or all these different things, or talking about anything that's happening in the sky, things in the distance, and they always bring up refraction. No matter what side, no matter what argument they have, they bring up refraction. That's not refraction. It's just not. And people don't understand that. So I don't think
you've just brought it up as well, though.
Yeah, because I'm saying it's not refraction. That's why I brought it up, is that it's not refraction. But
it's best to just ignore it, right? To don't give them their. And again, I was doing it before when I was talking about, like, the model afflicted. Now, don't give the model afflicted their little toys to play with. And refraction, the word, is one of their toys, and they love to fight over that toy. And they'll get you into an hour, 2 hour long debate fighting over it.
Don't enable the model afflicted.
Yeah, and I guess it happens on both sides, because I hear it from both sides, so both sides are afflicted.
This is why the logic, like I was just saying, the basics is so important. If somebody comes to you with something, they're like, okay, light is this thing. And you're like, okay, it's a thing. And they're like, well, it's not a thing. I mean, it doesn't have, a physical body. So you're like, okay, so what is it? And they're like, well, it's, and that's where when you have that basis, you can just, you can just swat away these kind of ridiculous claims before they even, because they have to take hold, right? They'll never get us to be convinced of some of this nonsense, right? Because they didn't get us early, or we're broken out now.
Yeah, once you gain your own proof, then there's no way you're going back to a place where proofs don't exist.
Because you proved it to yourself.
Yeah.
You went through that process. You can't go back to that.
Yeah,
unless you're ranty.
Proof, that's it. Well, I mean, you've never held the proof, right? You can be on either side. It doesn't really matter if you don't have a proof. But once you gain the proof, then it's a different matter. I think. Who knows? But I had a good job. Level is horizontal, I can say that confidently.
Yeah, and you can use the horizon as a level. Like, you can, it's just like a bubble. A big, long bubble, right? Yeah. That doesn't move.
Well, the true horizon, the one that is definitely horizontal, is the one over water. So that's where you get your whole understanding of horizontal from, is what water does.
Yeah, the air and the water, right? Yeah. The bubble in the water. And it's the same thing.
The water gives its equilibrium, just like you understand the equilibrium within whatever it is within your ears. It gives you the balance. Fluid. I think they're called canals as well, aren't they?
Yep.
And that's the equilibrium you've got. And if anybody's ever had that, where you lose that.
Well, they're the most basic gyro, right? The sense tilt.
Yeah. It's like being on a boat and being queasy because your eyes are feeling something different than what your ears are going with. It's really weird.
Yeah, I've gone on cruises, and when you come back on land, you swear you're still swaying, or your legs are swaying, but you feel like you're swaying. Well, I mean, you are swaying, but you feel it because you're on solid ground. Whereas, like, when you were on the boat, you were walking with it. Yeah, I really think it needs to move away from it's this, it's that, into this is the truth.
Somebody's asking in the chat.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. It's like, that's good, that, because it's logic night. So it doesn't really require much knowledge of a water level to get calculation from what? What's he going on about? The question is...
like account for the Earth curve, right? Like, we'll just say topographical curve, right? Because that's, we'll have that's where we're trying to measure for. A change in the physical contour of the Earth, which would be a topography. Now, you had any type of curve, a water level will demonstrate, that it's not straight and it's curved.
Well,
so any top...
What do you think? Just let's logic it, right? Very simple logic, right? you have to ask yourself, in what way could it possibly, two outcomes of it accounting for curvature?
I was going to ask, how would something that you would call Earth curve affect water? I mean, is that like a magical thing that Earth curve affects what water does? What is that? How would you even logic that?
Well, I'd say you've got two choices, right? You've got two choices. One being the water establishes a horizontal, and you have to account for the Earth curvature away from the horizontal, right? That the water establishes. Or two, you have the water level, and then have to do some sort of a calculation, something to account for the horizontal that you're going to have to establish after the fact, right? That they're the only two ways that you could possibly have to account for Earth curvature in relative to a water level, right? Now, have you ever heard of any sort of a calculation for the position that the water level has to be for you to work in a quadratic function, and how difficult that would be?
Well, it's definitely not built within the tool. It'd be impossible.
So that only leaves us one of those as being a possibility, right? The fact that the water level gives us a horizontal, and then you can just apply some sort of a calculation to it to imagine Earth curve. That's the only way I can see that working. So thanks, Jason. You can come and help us anytime. Logic Night.
Nah, that'd be a negative. Not gonna happen.
What about water levels that need you to account for Earth curve to use them properly?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, if you had a topographical curve, which would be Earth curve, like a hill, right? In all intents of the word, the level will show that. Like, that's how you would know it's a freaking hill. Like, that would be the, besides seeing it.
That's how we have rivers.
Sanitation, plumbing, right? Flowing water.
Who was it? We were it's been a while back. They were talking about that. It was like, well, what about plumbers? They have to get pitch on their water who was it? Somebody said they have to use not a benchmark, mean sea level to run their plumbing.
Yeah.
I think it was Larry.
Yeah, wait, where's Larry? Larry's never been over here yet, has he? No, we've never been graced by the likes of Jesse Kozlowski, the guy from Maine, presentations of the... Remember back in the day, they were all doing all sorts of stuff, weren't they? Proving the globe. It's like they've give up.
It does feel like the wind has came out of their sails a little bit.
I'm hoping Slice Barcane, now we've got a bit of shitty weather, I'm hoping Slice Barcane's going to attempt his bending water level test. We've got a video coming out. Hopefully I'll get it out tomorrow to bring Slice Barcane back again, hopefully. Because he's gone as well. I remember the good old days when they were all arguing about stuff.
On Nathan's channel.
Yeah, bending water level test. Doesn't that sound fucking great? Bending water level. I've never had a chance to actually have a talk with him yet about it. Because it seemed weird that we were doing a straight line test. Straight line shared straight line segment water level test. And he was doing bending water level test. And we never got a chance to chat.
Right, I know that when one of the first things I really remember like just about this whole argument was Fight the Flat Earth just screaming straight is curved, and it was just like, you know, it was real. It was a real pinnacle moment where it was like, bro, he Penrose himself, bro.
Yeah.
He fucking did it. He did it live on camera.
Violated his own fallacy, stolen concept. You know, it's
Yeah, that's when I was like, oh shit, you know, like I was like, oh, don't. Yeah, you don't want, these people are insane. You can't sit there and have a conversation with them. Look what he's doing. He's crazy, clearly.
Yeah, and then he went like full on, having to shout at people to tell them how stupid they are before they found out how actually stupid he is. Some of the stuff we've got, like going over the old videos, and one of the video, the one we're working on today, and hopefully we can get out tomorrow, is Kosho. And we've realised that the arguments come full circle within about 2 years, I think. I mean, I'd already done it on Twitter, so most of the people, I thought I'd taught most of the people the argument and they'd known it. But it appears that this is one of the things that the ballers don't even discuss with each other. It's too painful that they can't do it. They can only ridicule people for being different than they are. They can't discuss it because they all have their own model. But we've developed the argument around the geometry and the geometry, the logic, and obviously the practical side of it, because you need all three to work together. You need the logic then backs the geometry, and the geometry backs the logic, and then they all go round and prove themselves in reality to, you know, you can function with all of it together, like a trifecta sort of thing. But with the arguments come round in full circle, so it's time to go back and look at some of the videos that I did quite a bit ago, but I don't seem to have put them out for some reason. Possibly because of the Logos. But we've got one where we were talking about Slice Barcane and Kosho in the early days of the argument that we're dealing with. And it's so apparent that the obfuscation techniques of the way everyone works within this arena, it's funny going back and looking at them, because in the early days we were sort of half wrapped up in the argument and trying to test the argument, but now that it's all looped back round on itself again like it does, we look back at these old arguments and the old conversations, and I don't know, we've all grown, we've all got new arguments, and the logic makes you come at things in a different way, and so that way you can learn from what has been, and you can go back on some of the stuff that you were doing early days and learn more from it. It's good. So yeah, we've got that, and then we've got one. George came round and did a demonstration on his differential leveling.
RBD face.
RBD face, yeah.
Well, you hope to refine your arguments, right? You don't want to be again, unless if you got a good one, yeah. But if you're just debating the same, back and forth for 2 years, you either got to move on or come up with something new.
Yeah, we had Askin come round the other day. Shout out Askin. He's a good
2
mind.
years. What's up? You're talking 2 years?
Yeah, if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
I've been here for almost 6 years.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking weirdo, though. No.
It's just woke up.
You know what I...
It's like that guy in Monty Python clapping his hands in the cell. Yeah, we had Askin come round the other day, and he said he's looking for the perfect question, which resonated really well with us, because I think that's what we're doing. Like we know there are questions that can't have answers, but just finding the right question, and I think the logic is the way to do it, because if you can ask somebody a question and lead that to some sort of a logical conclusion, there's some beauty in that, and especially within this sort of framework that we're in, being able to ask good questions and be able to answer questions as well. That's another good thing. It always works well within this arena to spot good questions and spot bad questions. Always will help.
Yeah, and being able to articulate like why it's a bad question. And not just going, "Nuh-uh, you're wrong."
Well, if you do your P equals Q right, you won't have those problems.
Yeah, you won't run into straight as curved.
Oh, Buster just made a logical joke.
Just when you think you've heard it all, somebody comes along and just totally proves you wrong.
Yeah.
Don't you tell me what you thought what I was thinking. I don't know
We
how
should
you
make a
did it.
talent show
Really?
like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. He said something fucking stupid, so I figured I'd jump in. That was my cue.
So are you already doing your talent show piece?
This is my talent show piece right now. Wait,
Well, I guess they're home.
Somebody wants to know if they've gone over what causes water to find level.
Yes, easy. Hydrostatic equilibrium.
Gravity, you say?
It's the fact that all points at the surface would have a equal pressure state.
Zero.
Yeah.
Gravity.
And if that was difference, then the water would flow to find that equal pressure state. It just so happens that equal pressure state is on a horizontal.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, on a horizontal line. Oops. That's tough. And that's science, isn't it?
Yeah, physics.
Science.
Don't be a physics denier.
Yeah. Sorry, physics, not science.
Yeah, because there's a mechanism. There's a physical mechanism at work, right? And you'd have to have like the air curving, right? You have to have things and then there would have to be a reason for why, or a mechanism to make it curve.
Well, there's different air pressures for one.
Different air pressure is not going to make and here's the other thing, like air pressure, right? Already, look how it was already assumed,
reverse engineered.
Yeah, this force, the Air Force One, pushing the water down.
What's the curvature rate of air?
This is one of the best tactics, right? They do this all the time. The model afflicted. It's like, why does this happen? And then they're asking why they're only asking why it happens for one reason, so they can make it not happen, right? Because they're like, okay, yeah, the water's horizontal. Okay, but why is it horizontal? Because now let me show you how it won't be, because I have the why.
Is it really horizontal?
Can we check? There's got to be a way that we can check, right?
Yeah, of course
Yeah,
there is.
well, for one thing, there are those things called tides, so I don't know why someone was laughing.
not
just
on the
In a
water level.
lake
No.
have
wouldn't
tides.
anything
I don't know
tides
that.
wouldn't have anything to do with hydrostatic.
Well, that
Static
means the
equilibrium.
water is not horizontal. Then,
Static.
is it?
Static.
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 You're not listening. You're telling
You're
me it's
not
horizontal, but then there's the tides.
You're
so
not
how-
listening.
Bro, do you know that tides only happen in the ocean, right?
That means it's not horizontal.
Static.
Then, is it?
But we're
it's not
talking
horizontal.
water.
Then is it?
We're talking. Yes, it is when it's static because the water tides.
Why
hold
are
on, hold on.
you? Why are you
Hold on,
all
hold on.
parroting static? Like
Let me.
it's
Hold on.
some
Let me.
new
I'll
thing?
help you out here.
What does it
I'm gonna help you
even
out.
mean?
What is tides are only the change from the horizontal.
And what's happening in between those different
Well,
tides?
So when water
Yeah,
is
Beth,
static,
if you're just
when,
gonna act like a parrot, can you be quiet and don't interrupt?
all right, so when there's nothing that's making the water, because if water would just keep rippling, that would be infinite energy, right? Perpetual energy. We could just capture this, whatever energy is, whatever. So there comes a point when the water will stop rippling, right? It's just going to settle. It won't make any waves.
So
now at that
rippling,
point,
rippling as in not horizontal. Then.
when it stops rippling, right? There comes a
No,
point where
not
it will
horizontal.
stop. When it stops, it is horizontal.
Evidence, please.
Because when you're first, it would be your tide, right? The only reason you can say there is quote tides are because the water moved from its original status of not being tides, which is the flat static, however the lake, the water in a bucket. So that's your one. You can't have tides without having the not tides, which is flat water. You can't have one without the other.
What? Can you repeat that? Because you just said it went from not being a tide to not being a tide. So what are you even talking about?
You can't have you can't have a wave of water if you don't have the not wave, which is the flat water, right? Like I can't have a bend in a steel bar if I first didn't have the straight steel bar that I bent. Do you get what I'm saying?
You can melt the iron or steel into a not straight bar. You know that, right?
But when you say not straight, you have to have straight in order for not straight to have any meaning or application into the world, right?
Okay, and it doesn't mean the water is straight, though, is it? That's just
well. Hold on. Well, we're just establishing that.
Yeah, you're establishing the definition of words. You're not talking about the actual
wait.
Water.
We were talking. Well, first you changed to the iron, right? Because I was trying to use an analogy.
That's
but
your example.
Well, yeah,
I
yeah.
just went with your analogy. With your
okay,
example,
and I'm sticking with it. I'm
sticking
sticking with it. So in order to say that, like, oh, look at how this thing is not flat, right? If I showed you something and said, look, it's all messed up, it's not flat, I couldn't use flat, right, without some kind of connotation that you can know what that is.
Right, so you can have flat concrete. That doesn't mean the water is flat, though.
Yeah, no, flat's vertical, right? Now, when we talk horizontal, right, or tides, which are not horizontal, right? Tides are a wave or a ripple above or below horizontal. So now we have to have the horizontal so that we know the tides are going above it.
That's completely a red herring, because again, you can have
What?
a flat piece of concrete, and that still
I
doesn't
said
mean
horizontal.
the water, and that still doesn't mean the water's flat, though.
I said the water was horizontal. I never said, because flat can be vertical, right?
Irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
No, it is relevant. It's relevant because flat can be vertical,
Well,
right?
then let's go with horizontal, and we have the same point.
so-
but instead of flat, I said horizontal. Can you answer it now?
Yeah, so how do you know that there are tides if there isn't the horizontal to compare the tides to?
You can have a horizontal piece of concrete. How do you know the water is horizontal? Jesus
How do you know?
Christ,
Well,
dude.
exactly.
Can I just
Can
butt
you
in here
answer the question
for a
or
second?
not? You're not giving me
I just
any
point
evidence,
out
though.
we are dealing with Ed here. and
Oh,
we
so you're
did
making
get from
excuses now, Bev.
hydrostatic equilibrium to tides very, very quickly.
Why are you making up
Ed
excuses,
didn't
Bev?
even notice the fact that we kept saying static and he kept going to tides and
No, you just kept
pointing out
repeating
that
it as
tides
if it
are
was an
not
answer to what I
static,
asked
they
for.
are in motion, not
Yeah, so
static.
then why did you keep parroting static as if it had anything to do with
Because
what I
you
asked?
kept going to tides and we were talking about hydrostatic equilibrium.
Well, I was talking with right hand, so maybe.
Well, because tides must be the
interrupt them.
opposite of static, right? You gotta have static to have
And I
tides.
told you for the 10th time now, you can have a horizontal slab of concrete. That doesn't mean the water is horizontal.
Yeah, and how would you know if? Okay, so how do we establish
Can we
horizontal?
wait a minute?
False equivalent fallacy.
Yeah, we are
He
talking
brought
to
it
Ed
up.
here, and Ed seems to be the one asking stupid questions.
No, you
Like-
just don't have an answer. That doesn't mean it's a stupid question. Bev.
No,
Don't
we
try
know
to
how
run
to
away.
establish a horizontal plane of reference. We do.
Right. Okay,
That's how we
that
know there's
doesn't-
tides.
That
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's how we know there's
mean-
tides, because
That
that's what the
doesn't
tide
mean
is.
the water is horizontal. Then is it?
If you use the water to establish the horizontal in the
Yeah,
first
then
place,
show me you did
then
that.
yes.
Evidence for that, please, because that's
What?
been the claim.
See,
and
you
didn't
keep
provide
saying
any
this,
evidence.
Ed. Like evidence that a water level is a tool for
No,
establishing a
We're talking
horizontal
about
plane
water.
of reference.
We're talking about water. Don't run away now. Don't switch it.
Okay, all right.
You
I'm gonna
stick to
The water level is a water.
I'm gonna get you a water level thing now, right?
I
You
didn't
can-
ask about a
you
water
can read
level.
it
Beth.
yourself.
I asked about water because
Yeah.
you mentioned water. I didn't
Water.
ask about water level.
Well,
That's not what I asked.
a water level, Ed,
Not what I asked.
is
Beth.
any device utilizing the surface of liquid water to establish a horizontal plane of reference. That's
Yeah,
the water using.
Don't you see how amazing this is? Because right when I joined, you said that answering questions is a good thing.
Right,
And now
see-
you're not
well, see how
and-
I've
and now
just
you- and
answered
and
your
now,
question
Beth, you're
there,
not.
Ed.
No, you're not answering.
And
the
you're
question.
going to prove the fact that
But
you
you're
won't
not
take
answering
that
the
as
question,
an answer.
though, because you're not answering what I
What
asked.
was your question,
You're
Ed?
Talking about different things.
What was your question, Ed?
That all the water is horizontal. Please show me evidence.
The water
You're
level
not-
is
you're
a
not doing
tool.
that. I didn't ask about the water level, Bev.
Bro,
What did you
water
ask?
is
Wait.
the water level.
You
Water is
dickhead.
the water level, man.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's
Wait a minute.
using the same
Nobody.
thing.
Sorry. Nobody in here ever said all of the water is horizontal. That was never a claim made, and you're
Oh.
asking an irrelevant question about something that was never said.
Right,
Irrelevant.
So not horizontal then. Got it.
Nobody made the claim that all water is horizontal. So
Right.
you're the one
Not
that's
horizontal.
gaslighting everybody.
Irrelevant.
Yeah,
I'll make
it
the
doesn't
claim.
seem to
I'll
be
make the
on
claim that all
agenda.
water is horizontal and parallel to the plane at all positions. I'll make that claim. I'll make the claim that all
Only
water
if
is
it's not
horizontal
moving.
and parallel to the
Data.
position of the plane at all positions.
Show
Data.
me oceans that aren't moving. Whoever said if it's not moving.
Right, Ed.
I'll take that
Can
position.
you,
Hydrostatic.
Dude, if they could do geometric reasoning, they wouldn't
Right,
be flat earthers, man.
guys.
You're wasting your time.
Guys, are you aware that I'm hosting this?
You learn any
Thanks, Bev.
geometry
There
yet, Bev?
seems to have been a lot of loss of control here, mic control, from a lot of people. Or are you fame hungry or something? What is it?
Yeah, horizontal triggers
I'm
us
just
all.
calling you out, and you seem to have a problem with it.
You seem to have come in, Ed.
Bev, how many
not
times have you
accepting-
hosted a talk and
who's
you
that?
still haven't
Another
even
one.
learned any
Another
geometry,
one.
man? You still can't even do a proof.
Viola Billy.
Wow, Ed and Billy. Good work, boys.
Boom. There you go.
Well,
Thank you.
stop interrupting each other, guys.
And then,
It's pretty weird from the ability.
thank you very much. We're not having data either. Jumping in. Who's the other one? Ed. There you go. We don't need any more of you. Thank you very much. Now, if we can not have this stupid interruptions of people making stupid claims and then not accepting any sort of an answer for whatever it is that we're talking about. Seems a bit silly. Like, we've gone through the whole night dealing with logic and reasoning, and it seems to be quite well and pretty good mic control from most people.
It's a little bit of childish impatience, isn't it? people just getting excited and wanting to just spew their words out.
I think so.
Yell at you that you're wrong.
Defending their beliefs. It's
Yeah.
from emotion. It's not
It's called
from logic.
contrarianism. And I see it a
No, but
lot
we can
here.
do that in an amicable way where we let each other finish and then we address each other's points concisely and clearly.
And in short segments is best.
And with an honest intent to try and understand one another, which I don't see from Ed especially.
No, well, Ed always comes to obfuscate. We know there's a fair few people around these parts that like to just be contrarian, right? They just like to do it. They think it's fun. And it's hard to tell the difference between the model afflicted and the ones that just want to troll. Try and wind you up. They like to make people annoyed and then laugh and joke about it. I mean, we all do, but some people take it to an extreme. And
Yeah, thanks for being here, by the way, Ed. And Billy. Billy, you got some work to do.
Yeah. I don't know whether they aired it on YouTube or what, or whether it's just...
Really adds to the enjoyability of the conversation.
He's asked, so there, yeah, I will give, okay. Hydrostatic equilibrium. What do we mean like that? It's the neutral, right? It's the zero. It's the even. It's the no change from, right? That's what the equilibrium, the hydrostatic, it's where the water and the air meet, where there is, because if there's any input from outside sources, that will influence that, right? So when you just let it be, it will create an equilibrium, and that equilibrium is just straight across. Because once it moves from that straight, that's where it would take input from something to create that upward motion of the water or the downward motion of the water.
It's not surprising that is the base. That is where things are measured from. That's your standard.
It's almost like why water has that little bit of surface tension, right? So you can get it right. You know what I mean? Like you can put your right there, and it like holds it just a little bit, so you can get that real precision. It doesn't just drop right in. You have that little. It's like it's just made for measuring, man.
I have a quick question. Are you still live?
Yes, on the YouTubes. Okay. I will be shutting it down soon. 1 o'clock should be enough. So anyone want to go through any finishing remarks or whatever? I think we should do this. I think we should do a Euclid one as well, but it won't be as such a bigger group, right? And that one will have to be. I mean, that's pretty serious, right? I mean, this one's a little bit more serious than normally goes on around here. It's not a free-for-all.
Yeah, and you want to, I don't know if you ever, a kid used to play like keep away, like keep the ball away, right? Like, oh, okay, you don't let them, I think that's, you want to keep the earth away from it, right? Like, it doesn't have an influence on the logic, right? Like, nothing's going to change, like, a meteor or whatever, they blow up half the earth. Like, logic's not changing because the earth has a gigantically different formation now. That's just, I don't understand that again, that earth worship.
Yeah, trying to...
Bro, worshipping the creation, not the creator. I think that's really like, that's what they're trying to get you to do, man.
We was thinking of doing like a weekly roundup show as well.
I always thought it'd be good to do like a show that rounded up all the other shows, right? You got all those, you got Arwen, you got Jose, you got Gem Pandas, you got Nathan, Brandon, if he ever gets back online.
Happened.
Like a this week in flat Earth debate.
E-Soup of
like
flat
a
Earth.
review.
I need a replacement for Brandon.
A little review news program sort of thing.
Yeah,
Some
an hour or
of
two.
happening.
I think it'd be a good weekly stream, because they barely have enough content for a daily show. So we take all of it together. Should be able to get a good.
Do a bit of comedy.
Have a couple of people commenting along with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Commentary.
bro, it's like what we did when we were over at the other server. A good old time, man. A good old time. And we only have the one thing playing, right?
Yeah.
If we were able to get like little clips and stuff.
You got to put a bit of comedy into it. Everybody needs a bit of a laugh, don't they?
You need that guy to lighten the mood sometimes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, it's not all serious. In fact, none of this is serious, is it?
That's right.
This is us coming. Surely most of us, hopefully most of us, are here just in our spare time for a laugh. You just want to chat. Nobody wants hard times or fucking arguments all the time. Most of the time, you just want to have a laugh.
Yeah, a bit of a social interaction and.
Well, you guys, but I spend all day here while I'm working, and I jump in when I can.
Do you enjoy yourself, Rob?
I love it here.
Yeah, I do the same because I have a couple days a week. I work a monotonous type thing for some friend of mine, and it helps to just have I choose between this or music usually.
Well, anyone else want any final words before we shut off for this week? We will come back here again next week, I think. Logic night, Tuesday.
If it's logic night, can I just end mine with my logical statement?
Go on.
Alright, so if vertical is perpendicular to horizontal, then all verticals are parallel to one another. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I got a good one. If China produces all the CO2...
No!
Don't finish it.
Oh, save that for the end of the week roundup. Was Jose on live tonight? Was he on? I don't know. Right. I'm gonna sign off.
What'll start happening? Yeah, okay, yeah, sign it off.
Yeah,
No, you
sign
sign
off on the